Oh, wow. Hey, much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. How you guys doing today? Thanks for tuning in once again. Appreciate you guys making the time to be here. I wish I had more people though. Maybe people still working. Maybe people don't care. That's just how it is for Kurimeo's YouTube. It's all good. Maybe if I put on some controversial stuff, or I don't know, some cute puppies, I'll get a million views. But I guess whoever needs to be here is here. Hope you guys enjoy what we're going to talk about today. We're just going to go ahead and get a little of the history of this is just one doll. There's so many, right? But the history of the Raggedy Ann doll, a little bit of the background, who created it, what it symbolizes, and a little bit of the controversial history, how there's racism involved uh, in this doll. All right. So thank you for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoy what we're gonna go ahead and read. All right. Let me just get the book ready. You guys can hear me good, yeah? All right. So we're gonna be getting into this book right here. I think it's a pretty good book I ran into recently while researching Raggedy Ann. And I think this book is one of the most informative on it. We're gonna be reading Racial Innocence, Performing American Childhood from Slavery to Civil Rights by Robin Bernstein. Shout out to the author, Robin Bernstein. Again, we do this for educational purposes, for review, critique, commentary. All right, we're just going to review some of the information here. We're going to go to a specific part of this book. All right, we're going to go to chapter 4 of the book. And it says here, the black and whiteness of Raggedy Ann. And it says, I love her and spank her and much as I can, but that never bothers my Raggedy Ann. I never heard this stuff, like that's old school. So that's from A.R. Quinn, My Raggedy Ann, from the Chicago Daily Tribune, October 21st, 1920. 1920. Where's everybody at? Come on in. Come on, guys. Please like and share. Make sure people know. Now, be honest with me, guys. You were supposed to get 2 notifications. One 30 minutes before, and then another one after. Did everybody get a notification? Let me know. Because guys, you don't even know. I'm like really, like they're really messing with me. Like my views increase, my subscribers increase, and my money decreases. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't know, but whatever. Hey, I might need to get a job soon, guys. Anyways, we're gonna get into again chapter 4. Hey, what happened? Here we go. If you like to support what I do, I got my Patreon page. I think I'm gonna start a dollar campaign, the dollar campaign soon, because if I could just get a good amount of people just give $1 for 1 month, I think I'll be good for I'll be good. I'll be able to at least catch up on my bills and my repairs, and then we can be good, and we can take our time and investigating things, and not have to rush every day to try to make a video just to make ends meet. Unfortunately, that's how it's turned up, last couple years. I thought that as the years went and subscribers came and views went up, it would become easier. But no, I'm not kidding, guys. You never say that. They love hearing it. I'm serious. I might need to get a job, and I have less time for videos. It's just, See, Matt said I didn't get a notification. Okay. Yeah, Matt didn't get one. See, that's the thing. If you guys can really, if you really appreciate what I do, guys, all these, I'm talking about last 8 years, every day, like I almost drop a video almost every day, even whether I'm sick or not, you know, I'm here, and if you guys really want to support what I do, I got the Patreon page, all it takes is $1 a month from you, if that's what you want to give. I have so many books there, yes, including this book right here. I just shared this book 2 days ago on my Patreon. So I have so many books there. Yeah. All right. A lot of books there for you to take advantage if you want to support me that way, I could only say that if you do, Most High is gonna bless you, and Most High knows the struggle. So you know, I know people think that every YouTuber makes money, but it's not the same as when you're a YouTuber in the States, when you're a YouTuber in Costa Rica. On top of what they take 30% on top of the little bit of money now they're giving me. Like it gets ridiculous. But somehow every month I pull through. I'm literally check by check. Pay the bills. We got food, but I can't really progress. I can't really repair my house. I can't really do a lot of things. So it's like, man, I might gonna have to get a job. I see other people just chilling, traveling, going climbing places, going here, traveling there. They're looking good. They got the fancy clothes on. You know, uh, I don't know. Maybe that's just my destiny, guys. Because I know the Most High. Like I know there's a lot of good people out in their world that if they had money, they would make changes. They will change the world, and maybe you know people will come after them. Maybe that's what the Most High is protecting me from. So I just go. It's been like that all my life. I come from a poor family. You know, I've hustled and made money. I've had good jobs before, but when we talk about hustle, every hustle's not good. Every hustle's not legal. So that's not the life I wanted to do for me. That's not the example I wanted to set for my children. I wanna do it the right way, and and I went into my passion, which is history and teaching and all that. So 8 years later, I felt like that, man. Hopefully one day, when I have 50,000, when I have 100,000, when I have 150,000, and here I am, and it's just decreasing. I don't get it, but it's whatever. We're gonna and sorry about my my sorry story, guys. I'm sorry to share my sorry story with you, but I just want to see if there's any people out there that really hear what I'm saying, and if you ever wanted to support anything and you like what I do and you don't want me to go away and want to help out, make it a little easier, I invite you to the Patreon page. They don't take 30% off there. So, you can help me out big time like that if you're willing and able. Only if you're willing and able, okay? So, Raggedy Ann, we're going to read a pretty long chapter. I'm here for it, okay? Rain or shine, sick or not, cold or not, here I am. And it says here, well, let me make sure okay. It says in September of 1950, a young commercial artist named Johnny Gruelle, or Gruelle, I'm gonna just say Gruelle, seemed headed for a sustained, if undistinguished career as a cartoonist and illustrator. The son of Richard Buckner Gruelle, a member of the Hoosier group of impressionist painters, Johnny Gruelle had contributed incidental cartoons to the Indianapolis Sun, the Indianapolis Morning Star, the Cleveland Press, and other Midwestern newspapers. In 1910, while still in his 20s, he glimpsed fame when he bested 1,500 entries to win the New York Herald's competition for a new comic strip. The Herald ran Gruelle's eponymous strip about an elf, Mr. Tweedledee, on the first page of the comic section, where it replaced Winsor McCay's Little Nemo and Slumberland. When McCay absconded to a rival paper, many readers liked Mr. Tweedledee, but the strip inevitably suffered in comparison to its predecessor. The Herald manufactured and peddled a Mr. Tweedledee doll, hoping for profits similar to those reaped by Rose O'Neil when she transformed her cartoon Q-Piece into figurines, or by Palmer Cox when he plastered his cartoon brownies on consumer goods, ranging from dolls to soap advertisements to Kodak brownie cameras. And a lot of these cartoons, guys, that he's describing are like very racist advertisement. Hence why they're saying brownies. You guys can look it up. But Mr. Tweedledee failed as a cartoon or a doll to create a sensation, and the Herald dropped both in 1915. Gruelle then abandoned Mr. Tweedledee, but not the strategy of marketing characters simultaneously in print culture and dolls. In 1915, he trademarked several characters each. All right, so here's a little design, and it says this is J.B. Gruelle. This is his patent from 1915, supposedly, right? Of Raggedy Ann. All right, so going back real quick again. Sorry, guys. So in 1915, he trademarked several characters, each intended to bridge toys and books. These characters included a pair of ducks named Quacky Doodles and Danny Daddles, who were destined for obscurity, and a cloth doll named Raggedy Ann, who was not. Gruelle designed Raggedy Ann in part after a homemade doll that probably originally belonged to his mother, Alice Benton Gruelle, and he loaded the doll with references to American nostalgia and patriotism. Raggedy Ann's red striped stockings quoted the American flag, and her old-fashioned pinafore and homemade style gestured toward a pre-industrial past. Her name syncopated references to contemporary African-American ragtime music, with a portmanteau, am I saying that right? Of two Midwestern poet James Whitcomb Riley's beloved characters, the Raggedy Man and Little Orphan Annie. Raggedy Ann repackaged Riley's characters, references to rural America, and piggybacked on the poem's popularity. Riley's were among the poems most often memorized and recited by American schoolchildren in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Gruelle's homage to Riley, which was easily recognizable in 1915, was personal. Riley had been close neighbor and friends of Gruelle's parents when Johnny was growing up in the 1880s in Indianapolis. The Gruelles and Riley lived at 506 and 528 Lockerbie Street, respectively, and the boy had been entranced by the poet's verse recitations. But the tribute was also a broader nationalist one. Gruelle longed for the innocent American past imagined in Riley's poems, and he manifested this longing by explicitly rooting Raggedy Ann in neither his 1915 present nor his own 1880s childhood, but instead in the 1850s childhood of his parents' generation, the childhood of people like Alice Benton Gruelle, born in 1853, and Riley, born in 1849. Gruelle pointedly identified Raggedy Ann's antebellum origins in the introduction to his first book featuring the doll character. Raggedy Ann enters the narrative when a girl named Marcella, drawn after Gruelle's daughters of the same name, discovers Raggedy Ann in Grandma's attic, where the woman had abandoned the doll 50 years earlier. With this introduction, Gruelle synchronized the timelines for his fictional character, a sentinel doll owned by the grandmother of a character named Marcella, and Material Doll, a real toy owned in the 1850s by Alice Gruelle, grandmother of Marcella Gruelle, and he configured both as artifacts of the mid 19th century. Raggedy Ann's concatenation of ruralism, patriotism, and nostalgia for antebellum America resonated powerfully in 1915. The semi-centenary of the end of the Civil War, as historian David Bly has shown, the semi-centenary of the Civil War occasioned a national reckoning with the war's meaning. And this process produced and depended on literature and public performances that reformed and deformed the memory. The re-imaging of slavery and the Civil War also depended, however, on private performances that occurred in homes, domestic spaces that doubled, as Amy Kaplan has shown, with the domestic space of the nation. As this chapter will show, Raggedy Ann scripted home-based practices of memory that sometimes coordinated with and other times diverged from the dynamics of public memorials to the Civil War and the antebellum era. Gruelle integrated children's literature, material culture, and modern marketing techniques to shape white girls' private practices of play. And these performances in everyday life stealthily configured slaveholding and enslavement as racially innocent fun, as American love. You guys hear that? So what did they do? Slaveholding and enslavements as racially innocent fun. Gruelle aimed to become rich and famous by providing children with wholesome entertainment. No evidence suggests that he intended to rewrite history or to influence contemporary politics. However, he consciously saturated Raggedy Ann with racial meanings, okay? Especially blackness, as conjured through the white imagery of minstrelsy, okay? Minstrelsy. Much as Raggedy Ann's name conjoined African American ragtime music with Riley's Midwestern poetry, her visual attributes, I will show, amalgamated Gruelle's mother's childhood doll with a minstrel doll called the Gollywog, okay? The Gollywog, that was a minstrel doll, all right? Gruelle's further associated Raggedy Ann with Blackface when he connected her to the role of Topsy as performed in Tom shows. Most important, Gruelle constructed Raggedy Ann as an imitation of an homage to the character of the Scarecrow of Oz as created by L. Frank Baum. You guys hear that? Whom Gruelle adored. And Baum's Scarecrow was itself based in and animated by Blackface minstrelsy. Did you guys know that? Future video. The Scarecrow and the Wizard of Oz. There's a lot of things in the Wizard of Oz, guys, that a lot of you probably already know. So the Scarecrow was part of Blackface minstrelsy. All these ancestors left traces in Raggedy Ann. Gruelle made no attempt to disguise these traces, which were legible to early 20th century consumers. Indeed, the minstrel elements probably constituted a significant part of Raggedy Ann's popular appeal, okay? You see the origins of this doll, right? All right, where was I? Sorry, I lost my place. I was looking at the chat. and which remain legible to some contemporary Raggedy Ann enthusiasts who openly constellate Raggedy Ann with Gollywog, Pickaninny, and Mammy Dolls. Gollywog, huh? Let's see if we could let's see. Let's, no, actually he has images. I'll just wait till he shows you the image. Okay. Raggedy Ann's white color, like her name, referenced not a straightforward white raciality, but instead the complicated black and whiteness of the face-painted minstrel performer. Her flat, white mask of a face was a scrim that could, depending on the circumstance and the audience, reveal or screen out knowledge of race, history, and violence. It says here, marketing raggediness. Let me make sure I didn't skip anything. Hold on. Okay. So marketing raggediness. Gruelle and his retailers managed and therefore profited from Raggedy Ann's flickering racial meanings by seizing on the day's most current techniques in marketing. Gruelle and his wife, Myrtle Swan Gruelle, began manufacturing Raggedy Ann dolls at home on a small scale in about 1915. Gruelle then wrote and illustrated a book titled Raggedy Ann Stories, which the P.F. Voland Company published in 1918. That same year, Voland commissioned the non-breakable toy company to manufacture Raggedy Ann dolls on a mass scale. The book and doll combination sold brilliantly, in part because anti-German sentiment during World War I motivated parents to buy American products rather than the German-made playthings that then dominated the toy industry, all right? That goes into my Chazar videos history, guys. If you guys don't know, before World War I and II, like a lot of the things like were being made in Germany. The Chazars had monopoly of most products of the world. They kind of still do, but what I'm saying is they were the really only ones at that time. Yeah, I say German, but it was the Chasers who were living there, who were producing all that, making all the money instead of the local people. Yeah. So you guys heard that. So let's buy American stuff. So that made the dog become even more popular. Plus, they put the American, colors on it, right? One salesman for Voland reported that retailers, upon receiving a shipment of Raggedy Ann books, often reordered immediately throughout 1918. Voland subcontracted with multiple presses to print a number of copies of the book commensurate to the demand. The doll too sold well, over 3,200 within the first 8 months. A mighty accomplishment for a new plaything in a crowded field of consumer products. Between 1918 and his death in 1938, Gruelle wrote and illustrated 20 books featuring a pantheon of Raggedy characters, including Raggedy Ann, Raggedy Andy, Beloved Belindy, the camel with the wrinkled knees, and many more figures that were simultaneously marketed as dolls. By 1934, Voland sold almost 2 million books featuring Raggedy characters. Voland was but one of Gruelle's publishers. Others included M.A. Donahue and Company, the Johnny Gruelle Company, and Bob's Merrill, and these companies' combined book sales reached many millions. Many millions. We're talking about way back then. Becoming millionaires, guys, of a minstrel doll. You guys hear it, right? Sales of the doll have been similarly astronomical from the toy's initial appearance through the present day. All right, until the present day. United Media Licensing, which currently owns the rights to Raggedy Ann, claims total sales of 50 million Raggedy Ann books and products. That's the amount of products. So how much are they selling these products for? Whatever that is, times that by 50 million. Hmm. including 2 million items from 1994 to 2009 alone. In 2008, marketing evaluations found that Raggedy Ann has a 94% awareness rate with moms of children 2 to 11, 93 years after Gruelle first introduced the character. Unlike Kewpie dolls, brownies, and many other popular dolls of the early 20th century, Raggedy Ann remains an instantly recognizable fixture in children's culture, available for purchase in almost any toy store. She has been an American icon for almost a century. All right. So for sure, like even if you never owned this doll or whatever, I mean, most people have seen it, know what know about Raggedy Ann. I mean, I was born in the '80s, so of course we saw it. All us older folks listening. I know there's a lot of much older folks than me, so but at least people from the '80s and '70s and I don't know maybe '90s, yeah, they know the Raggedy Ann doll, right? Now you know what's funny about this, you see the history and the origins of this doll, right? So it's kind of funny that that demon, right, from Annabelle, right? You guys know the movie Annabelle, right? That's a real story. Annabelle was a Raggedy Ann doll. It wasn't like the one they showed in the movie. It was actually a Raggedy Ann doll, the original that they still have in this place, or supposedly disappeared or whatever, right? I don't know the story, but it's kind of funny that a demon will inhabit that doll, right? Knowing the history, right? Like not funny, but it's kind of crazy, right? Hmm. Raggedy Ann continues to thrive in part because Gruelle's perfected the craft of selling books and dolls in combination, a practice that dates from 1744, when the British publisher and book vendor John Newbery sold a pretty little pocket book together with balls and pincushions. Gruelle's book advertised his dolls, and his dolls advertised his books. Cross selling was an explicit goal. A Raggedy doll was often sold with a tag that listed the books in which that character appeared. Today, book doll combination sales have become the norm, with product lines such as the American Girl series. In the past 2 decades, many originally freestanding works of children's literature, the Curious George series, for example, have been reinvented as book products in combination with television programs, toys, stickers, greeting cards, and other commodities. Daniel Haid usefully describes the current practices of a corporation that owns the rights to a character from children's literature, such as Clifford the Big Red Dog, to such a corporation. And says a Clifford key ring is no different from a Clifford book. Each is a container for the idea of Clifford. Each container is simply a means for a child to experience Cliffordness. In this world of marketing, there is no difference between a book and a video, or a CD, or a t shirt, or a backpack. When corporations retrofit, sorry, retrofit book characters such as Clifford or Curious George with an array of non book products, or when a company such as American Girl sells book and doll assembles, these companies are continuing a mode of combination marketing of which Johnny Gruelle was an early virtuoso. Gruelle succeeded because what he sold and what millions of Americans bought was ultimately neither Raggedy Ann books nor dolls, but raggediness. All right? That's what they're buying, raggediness. Gruelle's contain raggediness in books and dolls. He also occasionally packaged raggediness in musical score or theatrical performance. He marketed these products to girls who were implicitly but unquestionably white. All right, that was the market. Because in the early 20th century, children of color were, as Lisa Jacobson notes, excluded altogether from advertisers' pantheon of vaunted child consumers. Okay? We're talking about real history here. We're talking about this is important to know. All right. After Gruelle's death in 1938, the Gruelle estate expanded licensing of Raggedy characters. Raggediness then entered containers as diverse as stationary piggy banks, pencil sharpeners, sleepwear, toothbrushes, dishes, lamps, figurines, and many other commodities. After 1938, when raggediness became almost as much about toothbrushes as dolls or books, raggediness became diffuse and almost infinitely flexible. During Gruelle's lifetime, however, raggediness securely bound raggedy books and dolls to each other and to the white girls who read the books and played with the dolls, and who read the dolls and played with the books. Gruelle triangulated dolls, books, and white girls by basing his books plots on his observations of his white daughter's practices of doll play. Raggedy Ann's stories, like the doll play typical of many children, are free, associative, episodic, and casually violent. Casually violent. Raggedy Ann's stories follows a community of dolls owned and loved by a human girl named Marcella, whom the Raggedy Dolls called their mistress. Huh, the mistress, huh? And who was the mistress usually in historic times in plantations? Huh. Whenever Marcella sleeps or leaves the nursery in which she and the dolls reside, the secretly sentient dolls stir and pursue wholesome adventures. Sometimes the dolls raid the kitchen for sweets. Other times the dolls tumble out the nursery window and explore the countryside or a fairyland that Gruelle named in later books, the deep, deep woods. Many plots pivot on the way in which dolls' physical qualities, for example, the possession of articulated fingers or clumsy mittened hands, enable or limit activities. Many of the stories are also premised on the idea that a doll's thoughts and personality derive from its physical qualities. For example, when Raggedy Ann rips her head and some of her cotton leaks out, she loses the ability to think clearly until the hole is mended. Before their mistress awakens or returns, the cheerful, playful dolls hide all evidence of their sentience, return to the nursery, and resume the precise position in which Marcella left them. Book toy combinations are powerful as both marketing tools and sharpers of culture because they hinge a consumer product to a narrative and thus transform both books and toys into scriptive things. Ascriptive things that simultaneously prompted behaviors and allowed for individual agency. Raggedy books provided a Raggedy doll with a name, personality, and plot scenarios. Certainly, many children resisted this interdependence and played with the doll in ways that had nothing to do with the books. And some children encountered either the books or the dolls, but not both. Sellers strove, however, to promote the pleasure of linked use and therefore compounded sales of book and doll. In one especially effective fusion of books and dolls, retailers encouraged each white girl to imagine herself as Marcella and her individual Raggedy Ann doll as the character in Marcella's story. Department store retailers accomplished this feat in part by erecting child-sized houses, models of Marcella's and Raggedy Ann's nursery, that were stocked with Raggedy Ann dolls and books. These in-store display encouraged girls physically to enter the imagined space of the books and to perform in that set the actions Marcella performed in her nursery. That is, to play with Raggedy Ann. Such retail displays coordinated with advertising in magazines and the plots of the books themselves to model and thus make the white girls and their parents aware of the play practices of thousands of girls whom they would never see or meet. Gruelle installed a racially complex and enormously appealing raggediness in books and dolls that many white girls acquired, assembled, and then unevenly and sometimes resistantly connected through practices of play. This irregularly orchestrated imaginative play with mass produced commercial products resembled what Benedict Anderson calls the mass ceremony of Enlightenment era adults reading newspapers and novels, a process through which populations collectively imagine nationhood. The book doll combination integrated playthings and literary texts to prompt ambient performances, normalized aspects of daily life to be enacted and observed by children and adults in domestic spaces. Girls' mass ceremonies of scripted play with raggedy dolls and books literally imagine the raggedy universe of meaning raggedy spaces such as Marcella's 20th century nursery. Raggedy Ann as a racially complex artifact of the antebellum era, and raggedy plotlines involving harmless violence, sentient property, and loving devotion to mistress. Throughout these scripts, anxieties about slavery flowed as a steady, ominous undercurrent. All right. And continuing, it says here, the politics of softness, a racial genealogy of Cuddy dolls. Homemade soft dolls have existed since antiquity, but the commercial mass production of soft dolls is an American innovation with racial agendas and effects of the turn of the 20th century. Most pre 20th century store bought toys, unlike homemade Topsy Turvy and other rag dolls, were rigid and hard to the touch. Bisque dolls or toy animals of sawdust stuffed leather did not invite cuddling, as the sober grip with which Elizabeth Page poses her doll in John Wollaston's 1757 painting suggests dolls of the 18th and early 19th century bore duties that were more utilitarian than emotional. Parents valued and sanctioned dolls mainly as a luxury object that announced class status, as Page did in this portrait, or as means by which girls learned and practiced sewing and other skills. Around the mid 19th century, however, emphasis shifted toward dolls' ability to train girls in emotional roles. By the 1880s, dolls' emphasis on sewing had become obsolete. According to Miriam Foreman Bruno, the change in dolls' cultural. Oh, all right, let's read this, right? So it says this is what they were talking about, the one in 1754. The dolls were more about like class and teaching girls how to be classy and learn things, right? So and all that. This is the example they're showing. It says an 18th century girl displays her doll as luxury object that announces class status. Man Page and his sister Elizabeth by John Wollaston. This is from 1757, supposedly, right? Okay. So the change in dolls' cultural labors registers in the contrast between Elizabeth Page's display of her doll and the rich maternalism of Gruelle's Marcella and Raggedy Ann stories. All right, so figure 4.3, what we're looking at here. Marcella daydreams as she cuddles Raggedy Ann. This is from 1918. In 1757, Elizabeth Page looks directly at her viewer. Her stance says, "This is the doll I own." In 1918, Marcella looks into the distance and bends her neck as she cradles Raggedy Ann to her breast, whereas Wollaston depicts Page in a moment of class-based self-presentation. Gruelle depicts Marcella in a reverie as she pretends to mother her doll through a comforting cuddle. Wollaston's Elizabeth knows she is being watched, and she returns her viewer's gaze. Gruelle's Marcella is unaware that her private act of imagination is being surveilled by Gruelle, the book's reader, and dolls that are, the book tells us, sentient. By the 20th century, dolls had become full-fledged aids to and structurers of imagination. At the beginning of the 19th century, dolls mainly taught their owners to sew, but by the beginning of the 20th century, dolls mainly taught their owners to pretend. All right, just like any toy, right? As cuddling with dolls came to be regarded as worthwhile imaginative act, commercial manufacturers began to sell soft toys. A few white American women, most notably Isana Walker, commercially manufactured clothed dolls in their homes on a small scale as early as the 1840s. It was not until the 1880s and 1890s, however, that numerous white women and some white men set up cottage industries to manufacture soft dolls. These companies stitched racial narratives into their products. Each manufacturer typically sold dolls in several varieties, at least one of which almost always represented an African American. You. Examples of cloth doll lines that featured black figures include the stockinette dolls of Martha Jenks Chase and the missionary rag babies, created by Julia Jones Beecher, half sister to Harriet Beecher Stowe or Stowey. The standard inclusion of black dolls suggests that manufacturers consider black dolls to be necessary and expected components of a doll maker's line. Tellingly, white doll manufacturers did not, as a rule, position Indian or other non black dolls of color as crucial to doll communities. Oh, they wanted to get rid of the Indian image for sure. You see that? Let's not cuddle an Indian. The underlying logic that made black dolls and not Indian dolls seem necessary emerges through examination of E.I. Horseman's company, Babyland, catalog of approximately 1904. Babyland, a geographically imagined space materialized in the pages of this advertising booklet, is populated by 14 dolls. White dolls include Little Miss Fancy, Beauty, Lady, Dorothy, and Little Jack Robinson. Black inhabitants of Babyland, include Topsy and Aunt Dinah. The catalog includes a pair of racially polarized baby dolls, the white Little Blossom and the coal black baby. You guys hear this? Who wear identical christening dresses, as well as topsy-turvy dolls. The final page of the Babyland catalog explicitly urges a child to collect all the dolls. A girl who did so and who placed the dolls in her bedroom would cause that nursery to reproduce the landscape of Babyland, an imaginary geographical territory. Horseman was not unusual in the use of geographical language to describe a line of dolls. Other examples of the same period include Fairyland Dolls and the Dreamland Doll Company. Most doll makers of the late 19th century were based in the North. Horseman, for example, operated out of New York. Martha Chase was from Rhode Island, and Julia Beecher worked in Elmira, New York. But they populated their doll lands with characters named Mammy, Dinah, and Topsy. You guys hear that? When white doll makers created these objects, they did not aim to represent the postbellum, northern, urban landscape in which the doll makers often lived. Rather, the doll land these manufacturers constructed was romanticized plantation south of the Lost Cause. Okay, you guys hear that? Hey, much love and respect to everybody tuning in, listening in, everybody in the live chat. I see you guys. Appreciate you guys. Again, you know, we just here. By collecting these dolls and arranging them in the contained space of the individual bedroom, a child caused the nursery to echo the Babyland catalog, to model and imagine Benin plantation. all right? In the context of this plantation wonderland, plantation wonderland, the near universal presence of black dolls and the relative absence of Indian dolls or other dolls of color makes sense, and not only because many lost causers imagined the plantation in racially dyadic terms that erase non-black people of color, the doll as a genre of object tells a story about persistence. Doll novels, doll novels such as Rachel Field's Hitty, her first 100 years, centers on the premise that dolls outlive their owners, or at least outlast their owners' childhoods. Raggedy Ann's stories opens with a scene of Marcella discovering the doll in an attic, where Marcella's grandmother abandoned it when the doll's first owner became a woman. This emphasis on persistence renders dolls and doll literature uniquely suited to tell stories about African Americans, particularly African American women, enduring a word that plantation literature routinely attached to mammies. All right? Perhaps most famously, William Faulkner closed The Sound and the Fury with the words in reference to the character of Dilsey. They endured. In the hands of white girls, listen, soft black dolls persisted, told stories about endurance, and conjured a lost cause wonderland. Conversely, the form of the cuddly doll was uniquely unsuited to tell stories about vanishing Indians or the frontier that officially closed only a dozen years before the publication of the Babyland catalog. As later pages in this chapter will show, non cuddly Indian figurines were integral to the floor games that H.G. Wells famously played with his sons. These games enacted stories of empire, of civilization and savagery, of war and death, and of the wonderland of the American frontier. In white children's play, hard Indian dolls battled and died on the frontier, wonderland of the nursery floor. Soft mammy dolls endured and persisted in scripted cuddles in the plantation wonderland of the nursery bed. Okay? Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoying the reading. We're getting not only the history of Raggedy Ann, but a whole bunch of drop and a lot of context apart from that too, right? With other uh, related histories when it comes to dolls and what they're meaning. Hey, Nam, welcome to the club. I saw you join. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, guys, I'm gonna set up a goal just if anybody is, you know, willing. Let's see, put 20 of $5. All right, we got a goal. If you wanna, if you wanna go ahead and support today, I'm gonna start a goal. No, no pressure, guys. No pressure. All right, no pressure. Raggedy Ann's Blackface Genealogy. Hmm. Raggedy Ann's Blackface Genealogy. Johnny Gruelle located Raggedy Ann within this soft doll land that persistently ran cognate to an imagined lost cause south, full of enduring mammies and other faithful slaves. Faithful slaves, huh? Doll worlds were racially charged, as Gruelle acknowledged in an unpublished, unfinished story in which a girl named Polly Peters visits a dreamland populated by different races of, all right, and hold on, guys, of dolls, most notably paired black and white dolls, all right? So, this is the doll that we're talking about earlier that he got a little bit of the influence for Raggedy Ann. This was a blackface menstrual doll that was called Gollywog, right? So, just take a look at it real quick. It says Gollywog seated and three Dutch dolls. The Dutch dolls wear clothes fashioned from an American flag. Raggedy Ann inherited the Gollywog's triangular nose, round eyes, and red, white, and blue claws. Bertha Upton, The Gollywogs, Auto Go Kart, pictures by Florence Kate Upton. Okay, that's this image right here. Hey, much love, Science. Appreciate you, brother. Wow. Thank you, man. Gruelle did not, however, rely on geographically imagined context to produce Raggedy Ann's racial meanings. Instead, Gruelle loaded his character with visual elements deriving from the three blackface minstrel-infused sources. These influences include the gollywog, that's the image we just saw, a book doll combination invented by Florence Kate Upton and Bertha Upton, several characters created by L. Frank Baum, right? That's the guy who made The Wizard of Oz, right? And the man who illustrated his books and performed in his extravaganzas, and the character of Topsy. Each of these ancestors left traces on Raggedy Ann's body. The Gollywog, again, this one right here, right, is very racist, guys. This doll inspired Raggedy Ann, one of the things that inspired, right? The Gollywog was a doll and book character devised by the painter Florence Kate Upton, an American-born daughter of British nationals. Upton based the Gollywog on a blackface minstrel doll she remembered from her childhood in the United States. The character's pop eyes, jet black skin and hair, and bright red mouth announced his minstrel ancestry, while his red, white, and blue outfit quoted the American flag. Okay? While living in London in 1894, Upton painted a story about the adventures of the Gollywog and his friends. The Dutch dolls, which were also based on toys Upton had owned. Upton's mother, Bertha Upton, wrote verse to narrate the paintings. The following year, Longmans published the collaboration as a picture book for children. The book's financial success inspired the Uptons to create a dozen sequels because Florence Kate Upton neglected to patent her character. Merchandisers of all sorts manufactured an avalanche of consumer goods. Golly or Gollywog. Products included not only dolls, but postcards, penknives, chinaware, wallpaper, ornaments, paperweights, and advertisements. James Robertson and Sons placed the Golly's face on jam jars, collectible brooches, pencils, playing cards, and children's silverware. By the time Claude Debussy published The Gollywog's Cakewalk in 1908, Gollies had become a massive consumer phenomenon in Great Britain, all right? This was being sold in Great Britain, in England. This menstrual doll was very popular over there. Hey, Matt, you know about this? Gruelle's Raggedy Ann quoted the Gollywog's triangular nose, all right? Triangular nose, and you guys know a triangle is wide at the end, right at the bottom. And so, they're trying to mimic, so-called black person's nose, right? The triangle. So triangular nose, right? Woolly hair, geometrical face, and American flag like costume. Upton's Dutch dolls were clothes literally made from pieces of an American flag, as well as the structure of the book toy combination that ultimately sold neither books nor playthings, but gollywogness. All right, gollywogness. Hey, much love, Jay Birds. Appreciate it. Oh, we got 2 out of 20. We got 2 out of 20 on the goal. Let's go. Gruelle also drew inspiration from the works of L. Frank Baum, of whom Gruelle was a tremendous, even obsessive fan. Gruelle felt particularly attracted to Baum's character of the Scarecrow, who debuted in Baum's The Wonderful Wizard of Oz in 1900, and soon afterward appeared on stage in a popular theatrical adaptation of the novel. Gruelle first expressed his admiration by including a sentient scarecrow in his comic strip Mr. Tweed Diddle in 1911. 7 years later, Gruelle's first Raggedy book included playful references to Oz and to the Scarecrow in particular. For example, Raggedy Ann's introduction to the other sentient dolls in Marcelo's nursery begins with the soldier Dolly turned his head and solemnly winked at Raggedy Ann, a parallel to Dorothy's introduction to the Scarecrow, who reveals his sentience by slowly winking at the girl from Kansas. A more explicit Oz reference appears in Gruelle's first Raggedy book when one doll comments that Raggedy Ann looks like a scarecrow. In 1929, long after Gruelle made his fortune with Raggedy Ann characters, he returned to the Scarecrow theme in the Cherry Scarecrow, whose title character's face amalgamated the features of Raggedy Ann with those of Baum's Scarecrow, as drawn by John R. Neal. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this image right here. You guys see that? Wow. A pantheon of Raggedy characters. Raggedy Ann plays the piano, and a scarecrow doll far left sits beside beloved Belindy. All right, that's from 1937. Gruelle quoted Baum's other famous illustrator, W. W. Denslow, in a miniaturized scarecrow seated among a group of singing Raggedy toys in the 1937 Raggedy Ann's Joyful Songs, figure 4.5, which we just saw. In this illustration, the scarecrow doll winks at the reader, echoing Gruelle's wink at Baum's legacy. Baum's scarecrow, which so enchanted Gruelle, possessed minstrel roots as deep as the gollywogs, all right? The scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz, guys, is based on minstrelsy, blackface. All right, in case you didn't know. When Baum originally created the character, he may not have had blackface minstrelsy in mind, although Baum did write at least one blackface play. Immediately after the Scarecrow debuted in The Wonderful Wizard of Oz in 1900, however, the character was reinvented in a blackface-infused musical Oz extravaganza, which opened in Chicago in 1902, moved to Broadway in 1903, and played to packed houses in both cities. All right. Now, guys, I do want to kind of show, but maybe a lot of people don't know what we're talking about, right? So let me just see if I can open that. So real quick, okay? So Raggedy Ann, right? Raggedy Ann. So blackface minstrelsy, right? So what was that, right? You know, we had so-called white folks pretending to be black folks in plays and theater and movies and entertainment. You see that? This is where this comes from, okay? And there's like a lot of famous so-called white actors that were blackface actors, right? Like this guy. So this is what we're talking about, guys. This is what we're talking about, right? You guys can understand. So the roots, check out this one. This is all, these are famous actors, right? Who played blackface. You see what Raggedy Ann and the Scarecrow, Wizard of Oz. I mean, I know a lot of you guys know this stuff, but it's, when we start talking about it, it just hits a little different when we actually understand the full history, right? This is what they were doing back then, guys. Remember her with that other guy who was playing Abraham Lincoln? Remember they were playing Abraham Lincoln as a blackface. Why would they do that if he wasn't black? They knew who he was back then. See, they lied to us in modern times as they switched to textbooks and started whitewashing everything. But back then, people knew Abraham Lincoln was a so-called black man. I forget his name, but you see? Wow. Okay. Look. You see? Mickey is so-called black, right? With a white face. Huh. With the gloves as like a server. So we got a lot of future videos on the history of a lot of these characters, guys. I'm gonna do a whole thing, now that we're getting into it. Okay. So look forward to that as well. So again, I just wanted to show you guys Hollywood's minstrel history, man. This is how they got rich, I think, literally, from doing the minstrel stuff. Why did they want to, oh, here we go. Here we go. You see what I'm saying? This is Abraham Lincoln they were portraying. I've shown the actual original. I got the original in my channel. I've shown the original video where they're doing that. So let me see. Where is he? Where is he? Okay. You see, I'm not making stuff up. I just want to show you guys so you can see I'm not making stuff up. Bing Crosby, that's his name. Famous actor, famous, yeah, blackface, In the now infamous Abraham scene, he's portraying Abraham as a black man. People say we try to make everybody black. From 1942's Holiday Inn, that Christmas movie. This is from that Christmas movie where Bing Crosby is playing Abraham Lincoln as a black man in blackface minstrelsy. The same movie that debuted the classic White Christmas. I'm dreaming of a. You guys know the song. All right. So just wanted to show this real quick so you guys can understand what we're talking about. All right. In case somebody never knew this stuff for some reason. I don't know. Now you know. Okay. Going back to the book, right? Hope you guys enjoying it. We got 2 out of 20. You guys like what I do? You want to support? Now's the time. If I ever needed you guys, now's the time. Okay, so where were we? Let me see where we leave off. Near group codum. Okay. So it says bomb scarecrow which so enchanted grooves possess minstrel roots as deep as. Okay, we got that part. So the Wonderful Wizard of Oz, however, the character was reinvented in a blackface-infused musical, Oz Extravaganza, which opened in Chicago. We're talking about Gollywog and the Scarecrow, right? The Gollywog and the Scarecrow, based on blackface minstrelsy, what we just saw. It moved to Broadway in 1903 and played to packed houses in both cities. Because Baum's novel, its sequels, and its 1939 film adaptation retained lasting popularity, it is easy to forget that the stage production was, in the early 20th century, arguably the best known and most beloved iteration of Oz. Okay, so this image right here. So David Montgomery left and Fred Stone right in characters as the Tin Woodman and Scarecrow, respectively. That's who that is. Yeah, I know there's nothing wrong. So support. So support. The blackface actor Fred A. Stone originated the stage role of the Scarecrow in this extravaganza. Stone had long teamed with David Montgomery, who played the Tin Woodman, an acrobatic and blackface performances. Stone brought to his performance of the Scarecrow a genuine genius for physical humor, in particular a comedic floppiness that he had honed with Montgomery on the minstrel stage. Blackface performance did not figure as an underlying presence in the 1902 and 1903 Wizard of Oz extravaganzas. On the contrary, minstrel traditions figured prominently and explicitly with the inclusion of songs such as Under a Panama, Bamboo May Shade a Sulu, and Sunny Africa. No coon can without Lulu unless he's under a Panama. Hmm. That's where she sits all day. Cockney coon song. Boys, have you ever seen my Dinah? She's got thrown out of Carolina. She's as lazy as a coon can be, and the sweetest girl in Dixie, and the witch behind the moon. Player sang. Player sang. Oh, what happened? Okay, next page. So here's another. Oh, here's an example. Here's an example. This is what they were doing, guys. We're talking about history, right? That's what we do in this channel. We're talking about history. We're talking about real things here. Not gossip, not beef, not the fake debating that goes on between fake experts. This is history, guys. I don't think, I mean, were you guys aware of this book? I hope the author appreciates that we're bringing his or her book out so people to know, and if they want to own a physical copy, they should. You know, you guys should definitely get one if you like it. It says Fred Stone and David Montgomery in blackface, so they were blackface actors, you see? The same guys who played what? Tin Man and the Scarecrow. Yep. Oh, and there's more. Up behind the moon there lives the N-word, which that prowls around the night. You guys see that? Comes a riding down upon a broomstick when the moon don't shine too bright. Keeps a looking out for the pickaninnies while she hums a hoodoo tune. In the house you better stay so you won't get in the way of the wish behind the moon. Bond was so delighted with Montgomery's and Stone's minstrelized performances of its characters that he crafted his subsequent Oz book with the blackface team in mind. The history of the Wizard of Oz, huh? Future video. Meanwhile, John R. Neal, who illustrated all but the first of Baum's Oz books, and also, as discussed in Chapter 1, the 1908 volume, The Story of Little Black Sambo, which included the story of Topsy, patterned his visual representation of the Scarecrow on stone. All right, so, hey, we may read the other chapters. I don't know. You guys tell me if you want me to read the other chapters. You know, I just thought this was, you know, because I was looking into a Raggedy Ann, I started with this, but, you know, let me know. Or I might just do it for my Patreons, you know. Baum dedicated his second Oz novel, The Marvelous Land of Oz, 1904, to Montgomery and Stone, whom Neal drew in performances as their respective characters. Many scholars have noted that Baum probably wrote this second Oz novel as well as several of the subsequent novels with stage adaptation in mind. The Marvelous Land of Oz features physical gags, spectacular magical transformations, and a chorus line of female soldiers, all of which caused the novel to read as a scenario for a stage extravaganza. Hey, much love and respect, Joseph. Appreciate you, man. Much love, Shy City. Yeah. You got this. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Appreciate it, man. We got 4 out of 20, guys. What's up? 4 out of 20 to reach the goal. You enjoying the reading? Thus, a blackface star's performance of the Scarecrow defined the subsequent literary and visual representations of the character, and a minstrel-infused extravaganza fundamentally structured the deepest Logics of Oz after 1902. After 1902. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, like Uncle Tom's Cabin, is not a literary text that illustrators, theatrical practitioners, and filmmakers adapted, but is rather a repertoire, a set of multi-directional calls and responses, repetitions with differences, of all which suffused popular culture through literature, theater, and material culture, including physical books. When Johnny Gruelle created Raggedy Ann in 1915, he quoted Oz's logics and visual tropes. Gruelle imprinted the face of Neil's scarecrow, especially its flat surface, triangular nose, perfectly round eyes, and semicircular smile on Raggedy Ann's face. And he imbued his cotton creation with the physical floppiness of Stone's body and performance. Influence flowed then from Blackface minstrelsy through Oz into Raggedy Ann. Okay? Whoop. Come on, what happened? I'll be hating now. What happened? That hijack, yo. That static. So this genealogy becomes particularly apparent through a reading of Baum's 1913 Oz sequel, The Patchwork Girl of Oz, which may have been an immediate source text for the 1918 Raggedy Ann stories. Baum seems to have written The Patchwork Girl of Oz like The Marvelous Land of Oz as a study for a stage musical extravaganza starring Fred Stone. All right, so let's just take a look at this image right here. And you guys can read what it says there. Thus, John R. Neal depicts Fred Stone and David Montgomery in character as the Scarecrow and Tin Woodman in a depiction page of L. Frank Baum's The Marvelous Land of Oz from 1904. The Patchwork Girl of Oz prominently features the character of the Scarecrow, plus the minstrel performance styles in which Stone excelled, physical humor, puns, and songs, and a striking echo of the 1904 Oz extravaganza song, Under a Panama, in which the lyrics declare that no coon can win out Lulu. A character in the Patchwork Girl of Oz sings a song titled My Lulu in a minstrelized black dialect. Huh. So before we get to the song, here's an image, right? Girl playing with the doll, Raggedy Ann, in one of many episodes in which she is thrown or tossed. We're gonna get to the whole point of that, what they were trying to say. So this is the song, all right? It says, "Oh, once my Lulu, my cold black Lulu. I wants my Lulu, 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 Lulu. I loves my Lulu, my cold black Lulu. There ain't nobody else loves Lulu." In The Patchwork Girl of Oz, Baum's eponymous character is sewn out of an old bed quilt and magically brought to life. That is to say, she is like Raggedy Ann, a sentient stuffed doll, although the Patchwork Girl, unlike Raggedy Ann, is the size of an adult human. She encounters Baum's other sentient mannequin, the Scarecrow, who woos her in the minstrel tradition of comedically elevated language. In The Patchwork Girl of Oz, as in previous novels, Baum emphasizes the Scarecrow's soft, light body, which enables him to be tossed frequently and without harm. In one of many tossing incidents, one member of a tribe of Africanized Tottenhots, or who we talking about? The Khoisan people, right? And it says, seized the Scarecrow's arm and was astonished to find the straw man whirled around so easily. So the Tottenhot raised the Scarecrow high in the air and tossed him over the heads of the crowd. Someone caught him and tossed him back, and so with shouts of glee they continued throwing the Scarecrow here and there as if he had been a basketball. Gruelle adopted the Scarecrow's tossability as a central quality of Raggedy Ann, who is frequently and harmlessly thrown through the air. Gruelle's enthusiasm for Baum's Stone-influenced Scarecrow extended into fandom for Fred Stone himself. Gruelle wrote an unpublished, undated dramatic treatment for a musical titled, perhaps provisionally, Raggedy Ann Show, in which Gruelle intended Stone to star. In this treatment, which mentions Stone by name 5 times, Gruelle imagined Stone playing a scarecrow who has adventures with Raggedy Ann, the human girl Marcella, and other Raggedy dolls. The Dreamland setting quotes Oz in the figure of not only the scarecrow, but also the wickedy witch Wanda, on homage to Baum's Wicked Witch of the West. Gruelle refers to another of his sources, Upton's Gollywog, when two of his characters claim to be the king and queen of Bullywoggle. Bullywoggle. Gruelle calls for Stone's blackface specialties in the Scarecrow's loppy dance and a funny falling act in which he staggers around and finally flops. By placing Fred Stone's Scarecrow with its minstrel-infused physical humor into play with Raggedy Ann, Marcella, and the Wickedy Witch Wanda, Gruelle suggests not only admiration for Stone and Oz, but also a desire to integrate raggediness and Ozness. Even more significantly, the wish for Raggedy Ann and Oz characters to meet on stage reveals Gruelle's belief that raggediness and Ozness were fundamentally compatible. Gruelle designed Raggedy's character in reference to Oz, but also as extensions rather than contradictions of Baum's imaginary, including Baum's racial visions. Okay? The Raggedy Ann show was never produced, so Gruelle did not realize his dream of Baum's Scarecrow meeting Raggedy Ann on stage. In 1923, however, an even deeper integration of Ozness and raggediness occurred in Stepping Stones, a musical extravaganza Fred Stone performed. Okay, so here's another image. So he performed as a Raggedy Ann doll. So it says Fred A. Stone left and Dorothy Stone right, in performance as Raggedy Andy and Raggedy Ann. Advertising leaflet, Charles Dillingham presents Fred Stone and Stepping Stones with Dorothy Stone from 1923. Stepping Stones ran in Chicago, New York, and elsewhere during the 1923 and 24 season, and Fred Stone played Raggedy Andy opposite his daughter. Dorothy Stone in the role of Raggedy Ann, the blackface star, and his daughter sang a number, Raggedy Ann, with music by Jerome Kern and lyrics by Ann Caldwell, that mix references to two of Gruelle's sources, African American ragtime music and James Whitcomb's Riley's poem, The Raggedy Man. And here it is, says, "We'll rattle off to find our ragtime cabaret, where we can rag our raggy rags till break of day. Oh, Raggedy Ann, do say what you can. Come and dance with your Raggedy Man." The stylizations with which Stone animated both the Scarecrow and Raggedy Andy drew not only on minstrelsy in general, minstrelsy in general, but also on the specific blackface role of Topsy in Uncle Tom's Cabin. You guys hear that, right? When Stone was in his teens, he began performing minstrel routines with his brother Ed, and in 1887 ran a 6-week stint with a Kickapoo medicine show. Stone first achieved notice, however, in the late 1880s and early 1890s when he played Topsy in a traveling Tom show. His employer described Stone in this role as a star. And it says, as a dancer of breakdowns in blackface guys, what? We're talking about breakdancing? As a dancer of breakdowns in blackface guys, he beat them all. He showed peculiar aptitude for the humor of Topsy, and the part afforded him ample scope for the development of his whimsical talent. Hmm. What connected Uncle Tom's Cabin to Oz, to Raggedy Land, was not simply Fred Stone and his whimsical talent, but more deeply the black and whiteness that underlay Topsy, the Scarecrow, and Raggedy Ann and Andy. All of these characters, indebted as they are to minstrelsy, enact not racial admixture, but instead the simultaneity, wow, of blackface. Each of these characters holds blackness and whiteness both in distinction and in tender contact, much as minstrels' makeup softly covers the face without penetrating it. As scholars from Eric Lott to David Rodiger to William J. Mahar have argued, when white minstrels corked up, they performed a blackness that did not obliterate whiteness, but that instead produced and shaped it. The white performer in blackface, like the topsy-turvy doll, gained form from what showed and what hid, from whiteness and blackness, from the promise and threat of racial flip-flops. The character of Topsy contained these promises and threats. Stowe derived the name Topsy from the phrase topsy-turvy, which the Oxford English Dictionary traces to 1530, and they suggest that topsy-turvy may have been a corruption of topside turned. When Stowe published Uncle Tom's Cabin, however, the word topsy had no independent meaning. A parallel may be found in the term hocus pocus. Hocus signifies nothing except a demand for pocus. By naming a character Topsy, Stowe created a sense of incompletion, a call for closure. Readers did consciously perceive the incompletion of Topsy's name. An article in Arthur's Home magazine in 1853 recounted an incident in which a little girl, while listening to the reading of Uncle Tom's Cabin, asked her mother, "Why don't the book never mention Topsy's last name, Ma? I have tried to hear it whenever it spoke of her, but it has not once spoke. Why, she had no other name, child. Yes, she had, mother, and I know it. What was it? Why turvy, topsy turvy." Hmm. As the girl in the anecdote understood the name Topsy, or topside demanded that the reader supply turvy or turned, the partial name Topsy foreshadowed the character's inevitable turnaround, her conversion. After the publication of Uncle Tom's Cabin, topsy-turvy dolls absorbed the Topsy-Eva relationship and often acquired the name Topsy-Eva dolls. However, the character of Topsy, independent of Eva, existed in complex relationship to the topsy-turvy doll, because the defining flip of the topsy-turvy doll lay nascent within Topsy from the moment of her entrance. Just as the topsy-turvy doll is permanently in the act of changing race, Topsy was permanently mid-conversion, a topside about to turn. Topsy's wish to change races, to be skinned and come white. All right, you guys, listen. Which Stowe presented as a tragic consequence of slavery, became by the turn of the 20th century yet one more comic aspect of the pickaninny. Numerous soap companies, most famously Pierce Soap, touted their products with trade cards and other advertisements in which black children partially or fully turned white. All right? The history, guys, is history. This happened. Some advertisements of the period explicitly connected this racial transformation to Topsy and a turn of the century advertisement for J and P coats. Thread, for example, Topsy assures Eva that Topsy, like Coates, black thread cannot lose her color. This advertisement jokingly suggests that Topsy would stupidly believe that Eva believes Topsy's color could come off by wetting. Wow. The humor asserts the impossibility of racial transformation, but it simultaneously posits the possibility of belief in Topsy turning white. This is what little kids they were. This is kind of the ideas they were planting in little kids back then, and ignorant adults. One of the most striking examples of Topsy turning white in the early 20th century may be found in repeated images of Topsy whitening her face with powder. Illustrations of Topsy powdering her face appear, for example, in the Little Folks edition of Uncle Tom's Cabin and Uncle Tom's Cabin picture book. In 1913, the same year that an anonymous artist placed a powder puff in Topsy's hand for the Uncle Tom's Cabin picture book, John R. Neal handed Baum's Patchwork Girl a similar implement. The parallel images become most striking in the light of the fact that neither Stowie's Topsy nor Baum's Patchwork Girl ever powders her face in the text of the respective novels. Despite the absence of powder in Stowie's or Baum's prose, hold on, guys. Illustrations of Topsy and the Patchwork Girl whiting up do not disrupt the respective stories because the idea of temporary whiteness in oscillation with temporary blackness was always inherent in Topsy and the Patchwork Girl. Hmm. We're going back to the image, right? You guys see? So if you guys start Googling Topsy dolls and blackface, Topsy, blackface, minstrel, you'll see a bunch of these advertisements, that I kind of was going through all these earlier. Let me see if I can find I know I saw some earlier. I had them open. Let me see. So let me see. I saw way better ones earlier. But look at that. I have found Pierce soap matchless for the hands and the complexion. You see that? You see that? That's so messed up, guys. So he got washed and he turned white because he got washed. You see, this is what they talking about, guys. This is real advertisements from those times. Real advertisements. Look. See that? The racism of 19th century. Okay, that's future videos. We're gonna continue talking about this. An uncomfortable truth for a lot of people. They don't want, man, why you gotta talk about what we did back then? Why you gotta talk about how we used to do that to black folks back then? Hmm. I saw so many better pictures earlier. I don't know what I searched for, but there was so many. All right, you guys see that? The peers, right? This is what they were just talking about, that company. Wow. All right. It says the whiting up signals a theatrical performance, a reference to the menstrual practices that thread through both characters. The The illustrators of Topsy and the Patchwork Girl did not draw whitening into, sorry, each story. They drew whitening out of each story. Topsy was always already in the act of whitening up. Already in the act of whitening up. Hey, much love. Everything is everything. Is that what your name? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the donation. Appreciate it. Appreciate you. Much love. Hey guys, 5 out of 20. Come on. 5 out of 20 to reach my goal. $5. That's all you gotta do. Just like when the $5, when they pay $5, like $5 Indian, that's all. $5. It says when Topsy whites up totally. Actually, let's look at the image. You see? Let's see what this image is. It says Topsy whites up in another unsigned illustration. A non Uncle Tom's Cabin picture book. Uncle Tom's Cabin, huh? Wow. Didn't they make us read this book in school back in the day? Wow. When Topsy whites up totally, if temporarily, the result embodies the negative of the menstrual mask. White skin punctuated by oversized eyes, a geometric nose, and woolly but non-black hair. The result is Raggedy Ann. That is the result. Raggedy Ann. And we got another image here. Okay. I'm just making sure YouTube ain't messing with me right now, because you know, later when I put out videos like this, they start messing, you know, they're like, oh, it's not suitable, you know. What? History's not, this is history. Fair use. So the Patchwork Girl whites up. The Girl whites up by L. Frank Baum, right? He's the guy who made Wizard of Oz, the Patchwork Girl of Oz, illustrated by John R. Neal. All right. Johnny Gruelle associated Raggedy Ann with Topsy from his earliest conceptions. All right. You see the influence to Raggedy Ann, right? All these different influences, but they all have like this racial background, this very racist background, and minstrelsy and blackface and all that. In 1909, a cartoon, Gruelle drew a child playing with a Topsy-like doll alongside a proto-Raggedy Ann doll. Later, when Fred Stone's daughter Dorothy performed the role of Raggedy Ann on stage, she replicated the gestures with which Caroline Fox Howard had imbued Topsy more than 70 years earlier. In a photograph of Dorothy Stone playing Raggedy Ann, which appears on page 78 of Patricia Hall's Raggedy Ann and More, Johnny Gruelle's Dolls and Merchandise, and is, hold on guys, is unfortunately not available for reproduction in this book. Dorothy Stone strikes a stance nearly identical to Caroline Fox Howard's. Each actress stands in an oversized pinafore, pelvis forward, one foot thrust out, hands flipped up, in what could be the opening pose of a cakewalk. All right. So let me go back. Oops. Okay, so check it out. It says here, oh, I see so wicked. Oh, I so wicked. Wow. And sung by Mr. G.G. Howard. Uncle Tom's Cabin. Look at this, guys. Wow. Says in her original character of Topsy. Wow. Crazy. Crazy. Oh, I So Wicked, a song, because she muses, the illustration shows Caroline Fox Howard in performance as Topsy, a blackface minstrel woman actor. Wow. Each woman stands as presentational. Each suggests, I am here to entertain you. Uh-oh. That's what you are. Entertainment. right? Who's still entertaining everybody in sports, music, everything, right? We see this cakewalk position persist throughout formal and informal performances of Raggedy Ann, such as that of an anonymous girl and photograph circa the 1920s that appear as the front piece in Patricia Hall's Raggedy Ann and Johnny Gruelle, a biography of published works. The girl in this photograph holds her hand up in the same presentational style of Caroline Fox Howard. There is no reason to suppose that Dorothy Stone or the anonymous girl thought consciously in the 1920s about Topsy or Caroline Fox Howard in the 1850s. When called upon to strike a pose as Raggedy Ann, however, both the girl and Dorothy Stone restored minstrel postures that were inherent in the character they aimed to represent. Raggedy Ann's whiteness, like the minstrel performer's court blackness, is always temporary. Raggedy Ann, like a topsy-turvy doll, Topsy and a black up minstrel performer, always contained within her the idea of racial flip-flops, the promise of threat of racial transformation. If one side of the topsy-turvy doll is exposed, the other side always lurks, waiting beneath the skirts. Sooner or later, the reverse side will emerge. Raggedy Ann's whitened skin exposes the white side of the topsy-turvy doll, but the black side promises to crop up. One such eruption occurs in the figure of Gruelle's beloved Belindy. Gruelle describes beloved Belindy, who sits next to the Scarecrow doll in figure 4.5, as the mammy of Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy and all of the other dolls in the nursery. Gruelle introduced her to the Raggedy Ensemble in an eponymous book of 1926. Gruelle left no statement as to why he created beloved Belindy, but the reason was likely commercial. Gruelle regularly invented new characters so he could add new lines of Raggedy merchandise. Gruelle's introduction of Mammy Doll in 1926 constituted a good economic bet, given the heightened glorification of Mammy from 1906 through the mid-1920s that Cheryl Thurber has traced. In the original draft of the story that would become Beloved Belindy, the eponymous character did not exist. The protagonist was Raggedy Ann. Late in the writing process, Gruelle invented a Mammy Doll character and retroactively substituted her for Raggedy Ann. As many Raggedy collectors have noticed, Beloved Belindy is indistinguishable from Raggedy Ann, except for Belindy's appearance and explicit description as a mammy. In this book, Beloved Belindy does not speak in dialect, unlike Gruelle's human character, Dinah, who labors in Marcella's family kitchen and laundry. All right, you guys hear that? Nor does she reminisce about life before the war, or indulge in other cliches common in mammy literature of the 1920s. Beloved Belindy has dark skin, where Raggedy Ann has light skin, exaggerated lips, where Raggedy Ann has thin lips, and a red headscarf, where Raggedy Ann has red hair. Apart from these reversals, the dolls are largely identical. Johnny Gruelle's manuscript papers further demonstrate the interchangeability of the characters in their creator's mind over and over. Gruelle's corrected manuscripts to transform Raggedy Ann into beloved Belindy, or vice versa. In one unpublished Christmas story, for example, Gruelle's employed strikeouts twice to flip between Raggedy Ann and beloved Belindy. So it says, beloved Belindy has never had a Christmas before. Raggedy Ann started to explain. So she stayed awake and watched me from the window. Didn't you, beloved Belindy? Santa asked. It was all so lovely and wonderful. Raggedy, and then he scratched it out, right, and put beloved Belindy managed to answer. Raggedy Andy laughed so hard his rag legs doubled up and under him, and he sat down and Beloved Belinda's lap, right? They scratched that out and put Raggedy Ann's lap. This manuscript includes no other flips in character, and it was not typical of Gruelle to substitute one character for another. Raggedy Andy, Raggedy Ann, for example, seldom trade lines in Gruelle's corrections, but Raggedy Ann and Beloved Belinda often do. When Johnny Gruelle created Beloved Belinda, he clearly understood that a Mammy character would in no way contradict or disrupt any existing logic in Marcella's nursery. Beloved Belinda slid seamlessly into the Raggedy nursery because that soft, wonderland was a racially innocent reimagination of the Lost Cause plantation. Beloved Belinda was not so much a new character as she was an amplification of traces already within Raggedy Ann. Beloved Belinda was Gruelle's second attempt to introduce a Mammy character to the Raggedy pantheon. Sometime between 1920 and 1926, before Gruelle published Beloved Belinda, he wrote an unpublished story, Raggedy Auntie, that melds explicit references to blackface and plantation literature with subtle echoes of Uncle Tom's Cabin. In Raggedy Auntie, Marcella's mother sews a black-faced doll stuffed with clean, white cotton and sporting white button eyes that looked very chalky. The emphasis on chalky eyes, as well as the repeated terms blackface or black-faced, the terms appear 7 times in 6 pages. That's what they meant. Laminates the character to the menstrual mask. The black-faced doll's outside reverses the coloration of Raggedy Ann, but her stuffing of clean white cotton matches Raggedy Ann's interior. It is therefore not surprising when another doll notes that black-faced doll is almost like Raggedy Ann. Almost indeed. Marcella names the doll Raggedy Auntie, a term that refers in this racialized context not to familial status but to subservient caretaking function. Plantation literature often used the terms mammy and auntie interchangeably. Marcella's squeeze her to see how nice and soft she is. When Marcella leaves the nursery with Raggedy Auntie in tow, the other dolls animate. A mechanical Dutch doll named Henny laments to Raggedy Ann that Marcella has named the new doll Raggedy Auntie, and we will get all mixed up when we call you. The dolls seem to pronounce auntie, rather than auntie. Therefore, they worry about the repetition of the syllable "an" in the doubled names. Most tellingly, however, no doll worries that Raggedy Auntie is pronounced auntie, might be confused with Raggedy Andy. Auntie sounds closer to Andy than to Anne, but the doll's anxiety consolidates only around possible confusion between Auntie and Anne, thus revealing that the similarity and potential confusion of identities is not only phonological. This anxiety about the interchangeability of Anne and Auntie quickly gives way, however, to overt rejection of blackness. Henny declares, "I shall not like Raggedy Auntie. She looks too black." Uh-oh. No one likes a black doll. Raggedy Andy responds to Henny by wordlessly giving him a push, sending him sliding from his chair. The other dolls laugh delightedly at the push, for they know that this is a signal for a romp. The dolls happily kick and bump each other. Then the dolls hear Marcella approaching, and they quickly resume the position in which she left them so that she will not discover their sentience, that they're alive. Like Toy Stories, right? Marcella places Raggedy Auntie on a chair between Henny and then leaves the nursery. As soon as Marcella exits, Henny again rejects Auntie on the basis of what Gruelle called in Polly Peters and the Wish Wish Man, the doll's race. I do not care to sit so near a doll with a black face. The new doll hears Henny say this, but sits just as still as can be. Although Raggedy Auntie does not move, the other dolls assume her to be sentient and try to interact with her. They chastise Henny for being rude and ill mannered. Raggedy Ann apologizes to Raggedy Auntie for Henny's rudeness, but the black faced doll just sits and smiles without moving. Except for Henny, the dolls gather around the immobile Auntie, and each one in turn takes the new doll's hand and introduces himself or herself regardless of Henny's disdain. Anne assures Auntie, "We shall play with you." Upon hearing this promise of integrated play, Raggedy Auntie animates. Raggedy Auntie wipes her white button eyes with her rag hand. "I just guess we all will be friends." Man, I'm not reading it right, but you know, with the accent. "I just guess we all will be friends," she says. "But I just thought if you all didn't like me, I would just pretend I wasn't alive." So Raggedy Ann puts her arms around Raggedy Auntie and pulls her gently from the chair. And then when the new black-faced doll is in front of her, Raggedy Ann puts her arms around the new doll and gives her a hug. "Thank you," Raggedy Auntie says. "I expect we all is going to have lots of fun." Hmm. This interaction echoes the conversion scene between Stowie's Topsy and Eva, and this tableau repeated endlessly in illustrations, including Figure 1.3 in Chapter 1 and 3 and Figure 5.7 in Chapter 5. Tom shows them by Gruelle's Lifetime film. Eva kneels beside the despairing Topsy and asks, "What does make you so bad, Topsy?" The enslaved girl replies, "Couldn't never been nothing but a N-word. If I could be skinned and come white, I'd try then. But people can't love you if you are black, Topsy. Miss Ophelia would love you if you were good. No, she can't bar me 'cause I'm a N-word. There can't nobody love N-words and N-words can't do nothing." You guys see what they're writing in children's books? They were writing in children's books. You guys must be paying a lot of attention. I don't see the chat moving. Eva touches Topsy on the shoulder and asserts her Christian love for the girl, and Topsy responds by bursting into tears. This is the conversion that was promised in Topsy's name. Topsy, we remember, signified nothing in 1852 except a call for Turvey, a prediction of topside turned. It is little Eva's only successful conversion in the novel. In Gruelle's and Stowie's respective scenes, hatred of blackness. "No one likes a black doll, and she can't bar me 'cause I'm a N-word. There can nobody love N-words, 'cause black characters to harden emotionally and therefore to behave unacceptably. In Auntie's case, to feign insentience, and in Topsy's case, to be wicked." In Stowie's text, the black-white dyad, representatives of the two extremes of society, representatives of their races, consolidate so Eva's touch can convert Topsy not only to Christianity, hijacks upon hijacks, and thus to eternal life, but also to sensation, which, in Stowie's sentimental context, made one human. Wow. Hmm. Topsy's desire to be skinned and come white is answered not literally, as in illustrations that put a powder puff in her hand, but spiritually, in the conversion to sensate humanity, as evidenced by Topsy's tears. Similarly, in Gruelle's story, Raggedy Ann lays hands on her dialectic twin and converts her to vigorous sentient life, the early 20th century mind cure, equivalent of Christianity, by persuading Auntie to animate and play. Each interaction ends with a promise for the future cast in the ideals of Stowie's and Gruelle's respective moments: sentimental redemption or raggedy fun. Marcella re-entered the nursery just after all the dolls except Henny have resumed their positions. Henny, unwillingly to sit next to Raggedy Auntie, abandons the chair on which Marcella seated him and hides behind the toy piano. Marcella doesn't notice Henny's absence and scoops up all the other dolls for a ride in the car. When Marcella leaves, Henny emerges from his hiding spot to discover that he is alone. In his loneliness, he acknowledges that if he had not been so rude, but had made friends with Raggedy Auntie, he would now be shooting along, listening to the hum of the motor and seeing the pretty things with the other dolls. I am very sorry, Henny declares, and he resolves to apologize to Raggedy Auntie. When Marcella returns to the nursery, she discovers Henny back in his chair. She places Raggedy Auntie in the chair with Henny and puts his arm around about her shoulder. Henny is surprised to find Auntie's shoulder nice and soft. Henny thinks, she's just like Raggedy Ann. Now that Henny has seen the error of his ways, the equivalence between Auntie and Ann produces not anxiety but reassurance. When Marcella leaves and the doll reanimate, Henny apologizes for being so rude and asks Raggedy Auntie to forgive him. Ha ha ha! Deed I will, Mars Henny. Raggedy Auntie laughs as she returns the hug Henny gave her. So Henny pulls the new Blackface doll from the chair and dances around the room. This paragraph encapsulates Gruelle's intentions. Interracial dancing is allowable, even celebrated, but only after Raggedy Auntie declares her subservience by calling Henny Mars. Uh-oh, a plantation literature corruption of master. Wow. Wow. This was a children's book, guys, about Raggedy Ann. Much as the dolls call the white Marcella mistress and pretends to be insentient in her presences, Raggedy Auntie calls a white doll Mars and pretends, if briefly, to be insentient in the other doll's presence. Raggedy Auntie eagerly assumes her role as servant. She tucks a doll in with a white bedspread and declares, I knows, honey, that Miss Marcella was just pretending, but anyhow, I'm going to be a real for sure auntie to all you dolls just the same. The dolls are delighted by Auntie's promise to care for them. Henny whispers to Raggedy Ann, Raggedy Auntie is just as nice as she can be, even if she has a black face. Even if she's so-called black. She's a nice person, even though she's black. Wow. Racial harmony in the nursery has been restored according to the logics crafted through the Lost Cause plantation fiction. Strict racial hierarchies produce peace, love, and domestic tenderness. Wow. Raggedy Ann agrees with Henny and then enunciates the story's moral. Some of the most precious things in the world are hidden beneath rough outside coverings, and it is wrong to ever judge anyone by their appearance. For the person with the ugliest face may really be the one with the kindest heart. I remember once you said the old shabby violin, although it was scratched and rough on the outside, might give the sweetest sound if it was played upon by one who understood, Henny says. Yes, indeed, Henny, Raggedy Ann smiles. And to play upon others we must use kindly, loving methods. Then we shall find out that they, in return, are filled with the same sunny happiness that we are. The didactic moral espouses a superficial egalitarianism based on valuation of people's interiors rather than exteriors. More subtly, however, the moral hails the blacking line come cliche. I am black, but oh, my soul is white. Uh-oh. Huh. This idea that black skin could cover a white soul embeds in Topsy's wish to be skinned, not bleached or powdered, and come white, not skinless, tortured and exposed. Wow. In Auntie's case, her rough outside of her black face mask, the most precious thing in the world, that is clean white cotton. Wow, you guys get it? Ooh. Huh. The moral positions, blackness and whiteness, simultaneously in close intimacy and stark distinction, and thus aligns Raggedy Auntie's body with the logic of Topsy and of Raggedy Ann herself. Each of these figures represents not blackness, whiteness, or racial admixture, but instead the black and whiteness, the racial complexities of the topsy-turvy doll and the minstrel performer. Come on. Right, and then, yep. So topsy-turvy dolls, how you can flip them over, guys. So that's the idea I get, right? So they got Raggedy Ann, and then you got the other side, you got the auntie. You see how they made her? So you can pretend to be her, and then you flip her like inside out, right? You can play with them inside out. One of them so-called black auntie, right? Raggedy, and then Raggedy Ann. Raggedy Ann, Mammy Topsy Turvy Doll, Cotton Country Creations. Wow. We only got 89 people. Wow, we didn't even reach 100 here today. Yeah, I get it. People don't care about history. Maybe I should climb a mountain or travel and just blog about traveling. Raggedy Ann's connection to blackface. Topsy plantation literature. Mammies or aunties. The scarecrow and gollywogs were playing in the early 20th century, and they remain perceptible to some today. Contemporary collectors and other Raggedy Ann enthusiasts persistently pair Raggedy dolls with Pickaninny dolls, Mammy dolls, and gollywogs. For example, Cotton Country Creations is a cottage industry that manufactures primitive country dolls, Raggedy's, and black dolls, including Mammies. The company's name refers explicitly to the cotton country of the plantation south, as well as the doll's constitutive material. The company's initials indicate either an association with the Ku Klux Klan or an absence of concern at being misconstructed as having Klan sympathies. All right? Cotton Country Creations, KKK. In a hybrid that is astonishing only in its lucidity, Cotton Country Creations produced a topsy-turvy doll in which one half is a Belindy-like Mammy doll and the other half is Raggedy Ann. Dollmaker Linda Wolf has sewn an equally revealing hybrid doll. Her Golly, as Wolf labels her doll, replicates Raggedy Ann's iconic triangular nose, high sliced eyes, lower eyelashes, and red striped stockings, but also the name and ink black skin of the gollywog, as well as the multiple pigtails associated with Topsy. These hybrid dolls, as well as the contemporary collector's persistent pairing of Raggedy's with Pickaninnies, Mammies, and Gollies, show that Raggedy Ann's location within a blackface genealogy remains at least partially perceptible today. Right? Raggedy Ann's blackface ancestors, Topsy, the Gollywog, the Scarecrow, left traces on her body, a flat, geometric face, woolly hair, physical softness and floppiness, playfulness, cleverness, acrobatic skills, possibility, cheerfulness, imperviousness to pain, tendency toward benign mischief. natural ability to entertain and cuddliness. Raggedy Ann's ancestors marked her not with a mixture of blackness and whiteness, but rather with the black and whiteness of the blacked up minstrel performer or the topsy turvy doll. Bodies that do not merely mingle blackness and whiteness, but that instead keep blackness and whiteness simultaneously in tense distinction and in intimate contact. Raggedy Ann does not represent a black, white, or racially amalgamated body, just as the topsy turvy doll does not refer simply or directly to a mixed race child. Rag- Raggediness is a sign not of African Americans or African Americanness, but of black and whiteness. Raggediness signifies not slaves, but the system of slavery, not black or white people, but rather, to use Eric Lott's famous phrase, white people's love of and death of blackness. Wow. Yep. Raggedy Ann is white up minstrel performer. So this is what Raggedy Ann literally is. A white up minstrel performer. A complicated racially obsessive thing of enormous cultural utility. A hulking, steaming meaning machine ready to be set to labor. Gotta highlight that too. All right. All right, 1 second, guys, while we continue. Hope you guys enjoyed the reading. Please like and share. You guys see there's nobody here. Please like and share so the video can get, out there, the information out there. Appreciate you guys. All right, I'm back. Trying to get a little snack here and some water. 1 second. Hey, much love, James. Appreciate the donation. Thank you, brother. Much love, man. Thank you. Everybody check out James' channel. He just donated, so you guys can see on the chat. You can click on his name. It'll bring you right to his channel. And guys, we got 6 out of 20. 6 out of 20 for the goal. Where you at? Oh, I appreciate you so much, Kurimeo. All right, well, now's the time. If you ever did appreciate me, now's the time. I'm not doing this just because I'm trying to get rich, guys. If you missed the beginning, I explained, kind of why, but whatever. It's all good. Or at least go to the Patreon. I got a lot of things there for you if you want to support me that way. And this book did cost money. Okay, this book did cost money for me to buy. Okay. So it says The Enslavement of Raggedy Ann. In contrast to the character of the Gollywog, who interacts mainly with other dolls and who does not seem to be owned by any human, Raggedy Ann constantly espouses her devotion to her mistress, the human child character Marcella, whom she and the other Raggedy dolls wish only to please. Gruelle's central conceit that the Raggedy dolls are alive, but that they hide their sentience, invites the question of why Raggedy dolls maintain their secret. If the dolls are alive, vigorous, and fun-loving, why do they not, like Carlo Collodi's eponymous hero and Pinocchio from 1883 simply leave the humans' home and pursue their own fortunes. If the dolls are motivated to scramble nightly out the nursery window and pursue delightful adventures in the deep, deep woods, why are they not motivated to remain in that realm and to decline to return to Marcello's nursery? The answer, Gruelle suggests over and over, is that the dolls faithfully love their owner, and that this love precludes any desire for freedom. This answer was not unique to Gruelle. Francis Hodgson, Hodgson Burnett employed the same conceit in 1906 in Raggedy House, but neither was it the only available way to configure dolls in literature. Contemporary contrasts exist in L. Frank Baum's Dot and Tot of Maryland from 1901 and Marjorie Williams Bianco's The Velveteen Rabbit from 1922. In Dot and Tot of Maryland, dolls revolt and riot against humans, who then forcibly subdue them. In The Velveteen Rabbit, the eponymous character never expresses love for the boy who owns him. The boy does love the Velveteen Rabbit, but that love is fickle. When the boy's parents attempt to burn the toy, the child voices no objections, expresses no grief, and effortlessly transfers affection to a new doll. The Velveteen Rabbit desires not to serve and love the boy, but to be real and to dance. The rabbit discovers that the boy's love can never fulfill him. Slated for death by burning, the rabbit cries real tears, and from those tears sprouts a flower, and out of the flower steps a fairy. The fairy transforms the rabbit, who had been real only to the boy, into a living rabbit, a truly real rabbit, who then joyfully joins his own kind in the forest. An even tarder contrast appears between Gruelle's books and Baum's The Patchwork Girl of Oz, in which Baum's characters openly debate the patchwork girl's status as enslaved or free. After the sorcerer, Dr. Pipt, magically brings the quilted mannequin to life, the patchwork girl, nicknamed Scraps, wants to leave and seek her own fortune. Dr. Pip explains that she has no right to do so because she is a sort of slave. The stuttering struggle to define Scrap's status as enslaved or free becomes one of the central themes of the novel. Soon after Scraps comes to life, a magic liquid of petrification accidentally spills on Uncle Nunky and Pip's wife, Margolot, turning both into stone. Nunky's nephew and Scraps then embark on a quest to acquire the ingredients for a spell that will reverse the petrification. Early in this quest, the patchwork girl comments on her liberation from slavery. All right, and that's the comments. Here am I, made of an old bed quilt and intended to be a slave to Margolot, rendered free as heir by an accident that none of you could foresee. I am enjoying life and seeing the world, while the women who made me is standing helpless as a block of wood. If that isn't funny enough to laugh at, I don't know what is. As Scraps knows she is freed from slavery, from the status of thing, precisely because her owner transforms from flesh to stone. For Baum, slavery and freedom, thingness and humanity are infinite in quantity, but tremulously volatile in quality. One always threatens to transform topsy-turvy into the other. Gruelle, who was so deeply influenced by Baum, evaded questions that formed for Baum a center of gravity. Whereas the patchwork girl passes from insentience to sentience, from enslavement to freedom, Raggedy Ann is always already sentient and happily enslaved. Baum's character question their enslavement and seek, and even riot for, freedom, agency, and personal fulfillment. But Gruelle's characters ask no such questions and desire only to serve. Gruelle literally obliterated acknowledgement of African American servitude in a 1928 manuscript draft titled Katinka and Katunka, Story 14. In this manuscript, beloved Belindi comments, all the dolls here love each other very, very much, and look at me. I am just a rag mammy doll. If I was real for sure person, I would not be able to play with everyone about me because I would be a servant. But here, one doll is just as good as another, as long as he or she has kindly loving thoughts for others. In Marcella's nursery, then, doll's natural servitude happily displaces and thus retains thoughts of racial politics, whereas Baum's characters scoff at a would-be human owner and engage in lengthy dialogues about their rights and their status as enslaved or free. Gruelle's characters glance off questions of their servitude with incidental phrases such as, it would never do to allow a human to know of their sentience. Gruelle's characters could sow the seeds of their own freedom and transformation, as the Velveteen Rabbit does when he sheds the tears that incubate a fairy. Instead, Gruelle aggressively and persistently asserts that Raggedy Ann loves her mistress and finds complete fulfillment in playing the role of passive, non-sentient doll, an object that in Gruelle's universe does not exist. Within the Raggedy universe, all dolls live a sentient doll, such as Raggedy Ann cannot impersonate an ordinary or inner doll because no such object can exist. In short, Raggedy Ann pretends to be inert, pretends to be a non sentient doll, so as to provide Marcella with a doll. As Marcella's ideal concubine, Raggedy Ann lovingly, willingly, and faithfully gives the gift of her own soft body. Yeah. You ain't gotta go. Yeah, all right. We're gonna still be here for a while. Hold on. Whew. You enjoying reading, guys? Hope you are. Welcome, welcome. If you just joined us, guys, we went through a lot of good info. It's already a 2 hour video. Make sure you watch from the beginning too, or else you'd be missing out on a lot of info we just went over. I will continue. This ain't easy, especially when you're fighting a cold and your nose keeps trying to get stuffy. I'm trying to like read, pronunciate the words good. Hey, Matt Preacher. Hey, man, thank you for that, man. Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you, man. Thank you. So, book toy. Okay, sorry. The politics of softness revisited. The racial power of play. Ooh. What do they mean by that? Book toy combinations, by definition, link narratives to material things. Reading to playing. At the turn of the 20th century, this linkage seemed especially important because the child study movement has successfully promulgated the idea that children's imaginative practices, especially girls' play with dolls, could and should serve cultural purposes. The child study movement, which was influenced by Sigmund Freud and led by the psychologist and sometime white supremacist G. Stanley Hall and his colleagues at Clark University, argued that a psychologically and physically vigorous childhood was crucial to not only a productive individual adulthood, but also to overall physical and moral health of the United States. Huh. Guys, hear this? This is deep right here. Psychologists therefore encourage parents and teachers to observe their children, especially during play, and to take notes in an anthropological style. Gruelle was one of thousands of parents who did so, and his notes eventually informed his Raggedy books. Alice Minnie Hertz Henniger, like, I, I wonder if their ancestors were Swarty, who founded the Children's Educational Theater, CET, on the Lower East Side of Manhattan in 1903 was among those who believed in the power of children's imaginative play as performance literally to shape civilization. Henniger created, or Henniger created the CET explicitly as a progressive tool. Her children's theater aimed to mold the behaviors and imaginations of immigrant and first generation children so as to Americanize them, and their families. Sorry, and through them, their families. Henniger did not, however, confine her project to the immigrant communities of Lower Manhattan. Immigrant communities, we're talking about from Europe. Immigrant communities, but those same people, I bet you got descendants that today want to go ahead and kick out all immigrants when their people were immigrants too. In 1918, the same year, Gruelle published Raggedy Ann stories. Henniger collaborated with G. Stanley Hall, remember the white supremacist, to publish a dramatic manifesto titled The Kingdom of the Child. This manifesto lauded the culture power of children's imaginative play and urged parents to enter the kingdom of the child, that is, to pretend with the child, so as to harness and channel all the vital imaginative power of the race. In one memorable passage, Henniger contrasted a boy building a box and a girl making biscuits, with a boy pretending to be a giant and a girl pretending to be a fairy. For Henniger, both the boy in making the giant and the girl in making the fairy do something more important to the progress of civilization than either does in making the box or the biscuits. For Henniger, children's acts of making such fantastic creatures literally strengthen their powers of imagination, which could then be applied toward imagining and realizing great futures for their nation. Because children's imaginative play was believed literally to shape the progress of civilization, Henniger and Hall urged parents to monitor and manage children's play. Henniger's dramatic manifesto doubled as a parental advice manual in which Henniger instructed parents to enter into the kingdom of childhood, that is, to insinuate themselves into the children's imaginative lives, not through force or coercion, but rather through gentle guidance and manipulation of a child's imitative or dramatic instinct. The destiny of the United States was believed literally to depend on parents' success in this endeavor. It's crazy because, I wonder how much this applies to the incubator orphan babies, right? Like, remember, got a bunch of excessive children here. I think it relates. Same. We're talking about the same periods too. Dolls offered one crucial way for parents to shape girls' imaginative play. Just as parents might gently encourage a boy to make a giant or a girl to make a fairy, soft dolls such as Raggedy Ann encourage their owners to take specific actions. As D.W. Winnicott and many others of the 19th and 20th centuries have observed, children's physical engagements with soft dolls may be divided into two broad categories. Children embrace and cuddle soft dolls, and they violently abuse them. Let us consider first the act of cuddling. Cuddle games are best understood in opposition to floor games. As the writer H.G. Wells famously described the imaginative games he played with his sons. In floor games, the boys and their father used boards to build miniature islands and archipelagos, wildernesses, and cities on the nursery floor. The Wellses then populated their terrain with small, hard, rigid dolls, most notably lead soldiers and figurines of red Indians and Zulus. Ha! The boys and their father played games of invasion and conquer, games that frankly modeled imperialist visions. For H.G. Wells, these games had the practical value of building up a framework of spacious and inspiring ideas in the boys for afterlife. This development of spacious ideas, Wells believed, contributed directly and literally to imperialist ventures. The British Empire will gain new strengths from nursery floors. Wells believes in the literal political power of children's play, echoes Henniger's belief in the culture power of imaginative performance. The contrast between Wells' boys' floor games and Gruelle's girls' cuddle games is revealing. Floor games tell violent stories about wilderness and war. These games model imperialism by granting a child panoptic vision over territorial battles. The boy is outside the action, aloof, all powerful. He holds small, hard figurines in the hand and deploys them with chess like movements. One member of the child's study movements noted in 1921 that bottle dolls, hard figurines built out of small bottles, are the chessmen of children used for playing the serious game of life? Cuddle games, in contrast, involve the child bodily with the doll, whereas the boy playing floor games causes figurines to interact with each other. The girl playing cuddle games interact directly with the toy. Floor games transform a nursery floor into oceans and islands populated by savages. You guys hear that? And conquerors. And transform boys into model imperialists. This is what Trump and the Chazars were playing when they were kids. Subtle games with compliant cottony, soft dolls transform a girl into a doting mistress. Girls' cuddle games tell stories about domesticity, family, and love. When cuddle games involve racially complex dolls that a book characterizes as faithful slaves, then those games perform fantasies of slavery as domesticity, of servitude as a mode of love, and of plantations of families. Okay? Violence was explicitly foregrounded and celebrated in floor games, but violence was also integral, rather than extraordinary, to children's cuddle play with soft dolls that were mass marketed for the first time at the turn of the 20th century. Before the moment, European toys had dominated US markets, and those dolls had been mainly rigid and hard. Boys' hard toys were often made of metal that accommodated rough play, but girls' hard toys, most notably bisque dolls, were fragile. At the turn of the 20th century, however, the emergent US toy industry produced unbreakable dolls that aimed to provide an alternative to or even a strike against European dolls and the values those dolls embodied and transmitted. Whereas European bisque dolls dictated prime play, cuddly American dolls encouraged vigorously physical use through both their composition and their attached narratives. For example, the teddy bear of 1903 simultaneously told a story about Theodore Roosevelt's wilderness adventure and accommodated rough play that would have destroyed a European China doll. The Raggedy Ann doll was first mass marketed by the non breakable toy company, whose name announced its toy's mission to accommodate violence. To accommodate violence. As Raggedy books and marketing constantly emphasized, Raggedy Ann was unbreakable because she possessed a cotton body. That is, she could not be hurt. She can't be hurt. Hey, much love, Cosette. Thank you. Thank you for the donation. Appreciate you guys. Hey, 8 out of 20, guys. I'm almost halfway there, like at least. Thank you for anybody who's donated, trying to help me reach my goal today. Thank you. Got the goal is only $5. Y'all can help me. The Raggedy Ann doll was first marketed. Sorry, I already read this. My fault, guys. Gruelle was far from alone in associating cotton with both abusability and invulnerability. In 1910, for example, Olis Agnes Flynn patented a soft doll with this description of her product. The fabric casings are stuffed with cotton or other soft yielding material, which will be flexible and cannot readily be broken by bending or pulling the doll, or by the rough usage to which such toys are subjected. Cotton materially and symbolically connected dolls to the labor of African American slaves and sharecroppers, right? Of any type of slave that was any in a cotton uh, farm plantation, right? They want you to think it was only black folks as slaves, when a lot of these black folks were actually the owners of these farms growing the cotton. Remember the largest cotton producer in the South was William Ellison, a black man, and then we got others same, you know. But we get because this whole minstrelsy and that trying to, how they add the slave narratives to the dolls. They're also trying to rewrite the narratives that all black folks were slaves. They were never rich or had farms, and all that. That. So it kind of they kind of how do I say this? They fool you in so many ways and so many levels by creating the whole generalized view that black folks were all slaves, right? And then they create a racist thing about it, right? As well. A Star Seed AK, thank you, man. I appreciate you. You got me, man. Thank you, man. Hey, Signs, much love. Andrea, much love. Signs, much love, man. 11 out of 20. Appreciate you guys, man. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Hawa bless. Hawa bless. Thank you. Cotton material. Okay, sorry, I got that already. For Flint, Gruelle, and many others, the key property and virtue of cotton was that it was yielding. Example, submissive. So even that, just the fact that using cotton, even though, you know, most everything that's soft and stuffed and cuddly is made out of cotton, but there was a reason they were using cotton. There was a deeper reason. That's what they're trying to show you here, guys. Like it was deeper. And therefore able to endure rough usage. But cotton does not only render Raggedy Ann fit for rough usage, cotton functions also as an essential force that constitutes personality and actions. In particular, Raggedy Ann's cotton interior enables the doll to move endlessly without tiring and always to maintain a cheerful attitude. If my head was not stuffed with lovely new white cotton, Raggedy Ann comments at one point, I am sure it would have ached with the worry. Cotton prevents worry and renders Raggedy Ann impervious to pain. Therefore, abuse cannot harm her. Hers is the cotton of the cotton lean girl, rather than Callie Campbell. Raggedy Ann's stories repeatedly highlights the connection between cotton and unfelt abuse, as in this quotation from Raggedy Ann, after a lengthy nighttime adventure in which the dolls rescue a dog. If my legs and arms were not stuffed with nice clean cotton, I feel sure they would ache, but being stuffed with nice clean white cotton, they do not ache, and I could not feel happier if my body were stuffed with sunshine. And then they quote nice clean white cotton, right, in quotation marks. Gruelle reminds his reader here and in many other passages is Raggedy Ann's foundational material, and the phrase it itself encapsulates the doll's racial contradictions and alibis. Cotton, in quotations, alludes to plantations, slaves, and sharecroppers. Hijack on top of hijack on top of hijack. White cotton draws attention away from laboring humans and toward the literal color of the material itself. The phrase white cotton is a diversion, a moment of legerdemain in which cotton is associated with whiteness rather than blackness. The addition of the word clean further asserts the benign innocence of the material that constitutes Raggedy Ann's and beloved Belinda's and Raggedy Auntie's body and personality. And finally, the word nice encapsulates Raggedy Ann's core value, as Henny learned in Raggedy Auntie, niceness trumps all. Because Raggedy Auntie is nice and soft like Raggedy Ann, the dolls accept the auntie's faithful labor, just as Marcella accepts the Raggedy Ann's love and servitude. Gruelle's oeuvre, oeuvre, how do you say that? How do you pronounce that? Oeuvre, oeuvre, values niceness over goodness. In Raggedy Land, sugary sweetness obliterates the very concept of justice. Raggedy Ann endlessly asserts that cotton is nice, clean, and white, and thus screens out processes of producing cotton that are far from nice, clean, or white. You guys get it? Like they were trying to fix the image of the cotton plantations and slaves picking cotton. Given that the emergent US toy industry manufactured soft dolls specifically to accommodate cuddling interposed with violence, and that violence was cast as a patriotic exercise in the development of vigorous American child bodies, it is unsurprising that children abuse dolls. G. Stanley Hall and A. Caswell Ellis, for example, observed children flogging dolls. Miriam Foreman Brunel describes historical children's common acts of violence against dolls, including one girl who smashed her doll against a window and another who disciplined her doll by forcing it to eat dirt, stones, and coal. Hmm. Children of all races committed violence against dolls of all colors. But white girls specifically, listen, targeted soft black dolls. Wow. For ritualistic and exceptionally violent abuse, which the dolls, of course, submissively endured. Okay? Ouvroir? Ouvroir? That's, wow, I would have never thought of that. I can't even say what you're, ouvroir. Ouvroir. Look, so that's the next chapter of this book, guys. And again, I might read that for my Patreons, guys, like, because it seems like nobody really cares about this. I got 90 people here, so what, I got a lot of Patreons that they do appreciate. For example, the painter Florence Kate Upton had, as a child in the United States, used her black minstrel doll, upon which she later based the Gollywog, as a throwing target. Gruelle includes such a scene in Beloved Belindy when mean boys abuse themselves by tossing Beloved Belindy through the air and beating her with a stick. The mammy cheerfully endures the violence and worries only that her pretty dress might be ruined, which would of course upset her mistress. Raggedy Ann dolls, like all soft toys, prompt both cuddling and abuse, while advertising and Raggedy Ann stories model more specific practices of play within this general dualistic prompt. Indeed, Raggedy Ann succeeded throughout the 20th century as a book doll combination because the doll's materiality and the book's narratives intersected through marketing to script legible scenarios for play. An individual child could, of course, resist these scripts, and for exactly this reason, advertisers went out their way to promote the linked use and therefore sales of Raggedy books and dolls. One advertisement praised dear old squeezable Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy, whom tiny tots just love to romp around with because they can do most anything with them. And the dear dolls are so good natured they just won't break with all the cuddling, tossing around, and bumpy adventures they are sure to get. Such advertisements instructed consumers to cuddle and toss Raggedy dolls, acts that Raggedy Ann survived because of her good nature. The advertisement hinged playful carelessness and abuse to narrative. The expectation that Raggedy Ann's child owner would use her to imagine and play out bumpy adventures. All right, you guys understand why they were soft, why they created these teddy bears, so that You get it? Especially with Raggedy Ann, so you could pretend to beat up black folks. Literally, that's literally what they telling you here, guys. You can pretend to beat up black folks. The kids pretended. Hey, Ying Mingo, man, thank you for the donation. It helped me get it closer to the goal. 12 out of 20, guys. I just need 8 more. 12 out of 20. Come on. So this image says Dina, a caricatured African American woman who works for Marcelo's family, wrings out Raggedy Ann. Steam rises of the boiling wash water. Raggedy Ann and Dina wear similar dresses. You see? The same. Both blue and with small patterns. And Dina's red headscarf mirrors Raggedy Ann's red hair. Okay? That's from 1918. Raggedy Ann stories coordinated with such advertising to model bumpy play in which white children loved, hugged, and threw Raggedy Ann along with all the doll's racial complexities. In the pages of Gruelle's book, white children cuddle Raggedy Ann to the breast and dismember her. The servants boil her and wring her out. All right, you guys hear all this? Children in Raggedy Ann's stories sleep with her, beat her, cut her, confide in her, kick her, and tree her. Tree her? What do you mean, hang her, you mean? Tree her? And with great frequency, they hang her. Okay, that's what they meant. They hang her. They hang her. The multiple scenes of hanging throughout Raggedy Ann's stories reimagine that act as racially innocent. Raggedy Ann's love of benign mischief often results in her getting dirty or wet, and these episodes are routinely followed by scenes of restorative cleaning and drying. Cleaning usually entails boiling, and drying requires hanging. In one hanging scene, for example, Gruelle paints Raggedy Ann with a goshed out, a goshed out eye. Okay. Whoa. So these, okay, let's just look at the images. So, right? That's when they watch her hanger, the doll, right? Says Raggedy Ann hangs upside down by the crotch. By the crotch. Wow. So is it from 1918 that drawn? And then we got another image here. You guys can see. Says the patchwork girl, topside turned, flies through the air while the scarecrow lies helplessly impaled on a stake. Wow. Yeah, that's what they're teaching kids. So, where were we? Hold on. So we got a goshed out eye. Gruelle paints Raggedy Ann with a goshed out eye. Oh, wait, I missed it. Hung up by one foot, while in another, a clothespin both points toward the doll's crotch and pinches folds of cloth that quote a vulva. Soft minstrelized characters from which Raggedy Ann descended endure similar violence. The scarecrow lies helplessly impaled upon a stake, while the patchwork girl flies, topside turned, through the air. Okay? Through the air. This is what they this is why they design these toys like this, guys. It's crazy. Crazy. Hey, Laverne, thank you. Appreciate you so much. Thank you. All right, guys, 13 out of 20, 7 more, 7 more. Come on, 7 more. I know you out there. Gruelle's many images of hanging reimagined lynching. Okay, all right. Gruelle's many images of hanging reimagined lynching as harmless violence against dolls. In the early 20th century, lynching declined overall but became increasingly racialized as white on black crime. So it wasn't so racial as before. Listen to what they're telling you. It wasn't always about race, the lynching. You guys know Lynch, Black French family. Future videos. We're gonna prove all this one day. People think I'm just making things up. So eventually, it became increasingly racialized as white on black crime. From 1889 to 1899, Americans lynched one person on average every other day. Wow, right? This is when they're taking over, right? Like Reconstruction, like, oh, you're being disfranchised, they're taking your land, reclassifying you, murdering you, relocating you, lynching you. Hmm. So they lynched one person on average every other day, huh? And 2 out of 3 of the victims were African Americans. So not all of them were so-called African Americans, but the majority were. It started becoming a race thing, guys. They were lynching people before that. They were even lynching pale-skinned people or whatever else, Indians, whatever, it wasn't about color and originally. But that's who they started doing it to eventually, and they became known for, right? Because that's who they did it most to, and eventually only to come the 1900s. From 1900 to 1909, one person was lynched every fourth day, but 9 out of 10 of the victims were African American. The raw numbers of lynchings steadily decreased. From 1910 to 1919, Americans lynched a person every fifth day. From 1920 to 1929, Americans lynched a person every 9 days. Wow, it's like stats on this. This is crazy. This is like they had averages and stats and like, oh yeah, somebody's gonna get lynched. It's due. We due for another lynching. Wow. Wow. Man, that's what I'm saying, guys. This is the history we need to know. This is the history your children should know. Instead of just spending all their days on social media and watching YouTube and I Show Speed, even though he's funny as shit. I don't hate on I Show Speed. Cause I feel like he just he's just being himself and nobody tell him any better and he's making something out of it. But I'm just saying, children should know this stuff. So look at this. Raggedy Ann divested of her cottony brains and hung. Oh wow. Yep, they took her brains out. Get it? And she's hanging. The percentages, however, remained steady during these decades. 9 out of 10 victims were African American, right? So there's sources, and that's an interesting video we can do. I'll go ahead and look into all these sources and look into this, and right. So it's violence against African Americans in the Midwest, where Gruelle grew up, and especially in Illinois, home to the early manufacturer, publisher, and distributor of Raggedy Ann, erupted in the form of riots in the years leading up to Gruelle's creation of his book, Doll Combination. Race riots occurred in Springfield, Ohio in 1906, and Springfield, Illinois in 1908, and in East St. Louis, Illinois in 1917. That's funny, right? Springfield, like The Simpsons, right? Is that why they use Springfield to remember those riots, those race riots? Is that why they chose Springfield as the name of their town? Hmm. So in East St. Louis, Illinois in 1917. In the 1908 riot, whites lynched 2 African Americans, killed 6 others, and injured many more. In the riot in East St. Louis, Illinois, 1 year before Gruelle debuted his book, Doll Combination, whites murdered somewhere between 40 and 100 African Americans. You see that? Can't forget this history, you know. But remember, this is what I'm telling you guys. 1900s. You guys were in charge 100 years before that. Before you started getting lynched and defranchised and relocated and murdered, categorized by color. In the summer of 1919, 1 year after the publication of Raggedy Ann stories, whites lynched 76 African Americans in 25 race riots across the country. One of the bloodiest of these riots occurred in Chicago. 23 African Americans died in that 4-day riot. The 25 riots of the hot months of 1919 earned the season the name the Red Summer. Sorry, guys. Just had to get some water. You know, I told you I'm fighting a cold. And okay. Unlike the victims of these riots, Raggedy Ann does not mind being ravished and hanged. Oh, Raggedy Ann, oh, you can do that to me. Don't worry about it. In figure 4.19, Raggedy Ann's head has been harmlessly skinned and emptied of her cottony brain so the stuffing might dry separately. An image that both recalls and suppresses knowledge of African American bodies that white lynchers ransacked for souvenirs, such as ears, all right, listen, teeth, fingers, or genitals. They were doing this. Throughout the non ordeal, Raggedy Ann smiles cheerfully. A poem published in the Chicago Daily Tribune in October 1920, barely 15 months after race riots devastated African Americans in that city, names Raggedy Ann's dual prompt toward cuddling and unfelt violence. Love and spanks. I can play any bumpity game with my Raggedy Ann, and she's is the same. Never gets sick or breaks her head, and never she tumbles wide or her bed. I love her and spank her as much as I can. But that never bothers my Raggedy Ann. Raggedy Ann's fixed smile in figures 4.9, 4.17, and 4.19, and many other illustrations makes the same claim that Francis Hodgson, Hux, Hog, how do you say that with the D and the G? Like Hod, Gogson, Hogson. Sounds like you're saying Huguenot son, a Huguenot son. So they make the claim that Francis Hodgson Burnett's Uncle Tom doll did in chapter 2. Hey, Patron's probably going to get that because Burnett's cheerfully hideous black doll smiled permanently. It appeared to be enjoying the situation of being whipped. Raggedy Ann, as insensate to pain as any other imagined faithful slave, any other pickaninny enjoys being thrown, boiled, wrung out, skinned, and hanged, is racially innocent fun. You guys hear that? Racially innocent fun. And that's the end of the chapter, guys. That's the end of the chapter on the history of Raggedy Ann and what it means. And what it means. What was the origin of Raggedy Ann, why they created her, and many other dolls. And this is a pretty awesome book, I think. Again, guys, just to hold on, let me get sign up here. There we go. Just want to pull up sign. So here we are in my Patreon page. Okay, this is my Patreon page. Just 1 second. So again, I have this book on my Patreon page available for my Patreons. Okay, you know, PDF copy if you wanna have your own copy. It's on my Patreon page. All right, I got some exclusive videos. This is a video they took down from my YouTube channel, and I had to put it on my Patreon recently. As you guys can see, I got many books here. Look at this one. Separate Peoples, One Land. The Minds of Cherokee Blacks and Whites on the Tennessee Frontier. The Atlantic Diaspora. Jews, Conversos, and Crypto Jews. All right. Look at that. Mysteries of the Mexican Pyramids. This is a great book right here. All right. And you see people enjoying. You can see comments like people, my patrons got all the drop and the sources. This is the book we recently read completely, Sacred Mysteries Among the Mayas and Quiches. The Indians of the Southeastern United States. Remember, we did all by alphabetical order. These are all available on my Patreon, and many, many more. I must keep scrolling down. These are all the books. You know, like, you're not going to see all of them because there's too many. Look at this. The First Americans. The Suppressed Story of the People Who Discovered the New World. Look at that. Mysteries of Ancient America, Uncovering the Forbidden, Volume 2. Yeah, these are books I purchased. The books I purchased and I share with my Patreons, okay? Haiti, History and the Gods. This is a good book we're going to get into eventually. The Princess of the Prophet, of course. You got a copy here. We've been reading this book. Well, Mr. Walter Brister, a.k.a. supposedly Noble Gruelle. And of course, don't mention the Chazars. We got, I think, 12 parts that are not on YouTube. 12 parts of the Don't Mention the Chaser series that are not on YouTube. 12 or 15 or 16, something like that. We got this book, Asian Slaves in Colonial Mexico, From Chinos to Indians. This is a good book too. Explorations of Ethnic Studies. So chapter 3 is the use of the term of Negro and Black to include persons of Native American ancestry. This is an exclusive video that got taken down. This is a great book we were reading on Savage Shores. Great book. And I was the author. She came and she gave me a copyright, and I had a copyright strike for 3 months. I had to take the video down, so I uploaded it on my Patreon. This is a great reading. We just read the introduction. It was amazing. All right. And we haven't even got to chapter 1. We'll probably do that for the Patreon, since YouTube, I can't do it on YouTube. So another thing we're probably going to go exclusive with on the Patreon. Fritz Zimmerman's The Encyclopedia of Ancient Giants in North America. All right, we've been reading that. Jack Forbes, The American Discovery of Europe. I mean, there's so much drop here, guys. There's some really great books here, and it keeps going. Like, look, that's another part of the Chasers, 33. That's an hour and a half video. Look at the comments. It's amazing how this, part 32. Look, 2 books, History of America Before Columbus, Volume 1 and 2. And so on, guys. Like, I got way more books than that, like way more, and videos, okay? So I just wanted to go ahead and show you guys that. All right, if you want to support me that way as well. Hey, Matt, What's up, man? Thank you, man. Appreciate you for the donation, brother. Thank you. 14 out of 20, guys. I was 6 people short of the goal. I was 6 people short of the goal. Come on, I know you out there. I know there's 6 people out there. You know, you guys appreciate what I do. I know you got a Netflix subscription and all this other stuff. You appreciate what I do. This is work, guys. This is what I do, you know. It became work, you know. This YouTube content creating thing becomes people's jobs, you know. If not, I gotta go look for a job. You know, if not, I gotta actually go look for a job where I won't have time to read these books and make videos and stuff. Like I said in the beginning of the video, you know, if you want to support, now's the time. Like for real. Like you guys know I never really do this, but I'm doing it for a reason right now. Okay, very personal reasons. So if you like to support or you ever wanted to support me, now's the time. Now's the time. 14 out of 20. Where you guys at? Maybe if I was blogging about boxing or something else, or showing cute puppies, or making like fart noises or something, because I see like people getting paid because they got these silly, weird YouTube channels and stuff, and they just getting. I don't get it. I don't get it, but whatever. Anyways, this is the book again we've been reading. Racial Innocence. Performing American Childhood from Slavery to Civil Rights by Robin Bernstein. Okay. Shout out to the author. I think this is a great book to have a physical copy. Support the author. You know, purchase the book. You know, again, fair use. Don't give us no copyright strike. This is for educational purposes. All right. That was the book, guys. I appreciate you guys that coming through today and reading along with me, being patient as I go through the chapter and we learn the history of Raggedy Ann's minstrel, blackface, origins, and genealogy, as they said earlier. And genealogy. Nah, don't worry about Jacob. That's what I'm saying. Like, only if you're willing and able. I'm not talking to the people who can't afford to donate to me. I'm talking to y'all who can. And I know there's a lot of y'all who can. I know there's a lot of y'all who can. I'm not talking to those who can't, man. I'm talking about those who are willing and able. Don't, Jacob, you good, bro. Don't worry about it, bro. Like, you good, man. I'm talking to those, they know who they are. Hopefully they heart and they go with their heart and not their mind. They just go with their heart and not their mind. Don't think about it too much. Just say, yeah, I'm gonna hook them up. All right, so you got the Patreon. I would prefer Patreon because on Patreon they don't take 30%. YouTube takes 30% right off the top. But either way, it's all good. It's all good. Let me see what I got here. Let me go out with. Yeah. But I appreciate you guys coming through either way. Hope you guys enjoyed this historical lesson on. And you see, this opens up to a whole lot of bunch of other topics and other dolls and other uh, racism and objects that you didn't know had racist origins. Hey Jacob, though, Patreon. I mean, if you guys were to Patreon is very secure. I mean, it's very very secure, and it goes right into my like when I goes right into my bank account. I don't have to like go through any. It goes right into my bank account in Costa Rica, like, and they don't take 30%, and it's very very secure. And at any moment you feel like uncomfortable, you can opt out. You know, you can do a one-time thing, and not you don't have to do the monthly thing. If I just had like, imagine if look at how many subscribers I got. If they gave $1 each, like a dollar, Man, I would get out of my hole and depth and all this repair stuff I gotta do, and I put myself back in my feet for just 1 month. Just 1 month. That's all I need. No, I don't want to have to be forced to try to get this extra job, you guys. Hey, be grateful if you have a great job. You got the means. Some of us be struggling. Some of us be on that hustle all day, every day. And you guys, the ones who are on it, know what I'm talking about. And it's just like, but we'll get our break, guys. We'll get our break. We will. I'm gonna keep doing this because I love this. It's my passion. I love putting this info out. I was always into history, and I just like people learning things they didn't know about history. It's just, it's a passion to me. So I'm gonna continue doing it always, always. I've been here 8 years, and you guys know I've never really done this where I'm like, oh, hook me up, you know, or hit that cash app. I can't even say that. That's the thing, man. I mean, man, these dudes are so lucky in the States, man. Like, don't even know, like, hit that cat. I can't even do that. I can't even do that. It doesn't exist here. You haven't paid in 2 years. Hey, you just want to meet. Hey, that's all my life. The story of my life. What power? I got kids though, and they're fed, and I put them. Make sure I put them in like good schools and stuff, because the public schools, some of them are really bad. So make sure they're getting some real education and proper uh, care. I put them in good schools. I have my son in this tech. He's learning how to create games and program and all that. So he's almost done with that. I'm proud of myself for being able to do that because of you guys. But it comes in, it goes out the same month. You know, it's all good. It's all good. But we do need to do some repairs and stuff and get out of some debts, so we're not always in debt. You get what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to just get rid of that so we can just be able to save, because I can't even do that. Can't even save. But it's all good. I know a lot of millions of people are in the same struggle and living check by check. I get it. I know it. I know it. Trust me. But again, if you're willing and able, and I know a lot of you are, if you're willing and able, maybe you will. Maybe your heart your heart will feel like doing it. I thank you for everybody that donated. Thank you to everybody who's always supported me on Patreon. Lots of people there that have been there for 4 years. Like, man, I'm so grateful for you guys, because you guys are the ones that hold me up. You guys allow me to make sure if YouTube is acting up and doesn't give me money and takes money and it just decreases every month, you guys are the ones to make sure that I'm able to pay my bills and put food on my table and continue to do what I do on YouTube. The things you guys enjoy. So, man, my Patreon, man, I couldn't be more thankful. You know, appreciate you guys coming through on your Wednesday. I'll give you your time back. We've been here 3 hours. It's not easy reading for 3 hours, guys. Try it, especially on a live with thousands of people hearing. Try it one day, especially when you got a cold and stressed out, but it's all good. Most High, Hawaii, got my back always, man. It's all temporary. These things will come and go, always temporary, and we just get stronger and stronger and more motivated. Thank you for coming through, guys. Appreciate you guys. If you're interested in the Patreon, the link is in the description of my videos always. All right. I hope you enjoyed the history of Raggedy Ann doll. You see how controversial it is. I might have to change the cover because I feel like I might have to make it a little more, controversial. And I didn't want to, because the thing is, guys, they watch me. I can't, like, I wanted to put blackface images on the cover, but I'll probably get, oh, not suitable for advertisement. Then they'll really hurt me. You know what I mean? So I always gotta watch out with what titles I put, what thumbnails I use. It's crazy. They always messing with me. But I might do it for this one just to see if I can get more traffic. Thank you for those who came through, who supported, who enjoyed it. I appreciate you guys always. Okay. Thank you, man, for real. Like, you guys don't know how much I appreciate you guys. And if I was a millionaire, man, I would bless so many people, man. I would bless so many people if I was a millionaire, man. That's why, that's why Most High is protecting me because they know they come after me. People with real people with money would change the world, man. Okay, and that's why they want certain people to have the money and power, not certain people. Much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Wow. Shout out to All Make 12 for the beat. Con Mayo.